Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, a live look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for every UFC event with your host, TV Scouting MMA, and
the Guru back again for UFC 310. We've got Alexandre Pantoja defending his flyweight title against the brand new to the UFC former Rising champion Kai Asakura. And in your co-main event, a 5-round fight for your title contender eliminator, you've got Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Garry, the battle of the undefeateds. But before we can get into that welterweight clash and many other fantastic fights on this card, we have a fantastic guest to announce here on the show. Back again, friend of the show. You can check out his work over on Roto Grinders or Action Network. Make sure you're checking him out over on YouTube, Liam's First Look. I mean, this guy has fantastic breakdowns and fantastic bets. That's the type of stuff you like to parlay together. Mr. Liam, thank you so much for joining us, buddy. How are you feeling, and what do you think about this card?
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be back. We had a little week off, and as you guys know, MMA, there's no off season, right? A lot of these guys like to cap certain sports, NFL, whatever, and they have a natural cadence to the year where they kind of take some time away from it, then they build that love back up. But in terms of MMA, it's a relentless schedule, right? Each and every week, and we had that week off. Now we're ready to get back into it, and what a fantastic slate of fights, right? You look from top to bottom, a lot of UFC cards, we could be honest, there's some strength at the top, a little star power. And then as you start drifting down, you're like, who are these guys? Is this LFA or what are we watching? And no disrespect, but that's not what we're getting here, right? This is a lot of established UFC fighters for the most part. And so not every fight is easy to bet on. A lot of big favorites here, obviously, and they've been running serves so far this year in the UFC, but there's also been a little bit of regression as we saw last week, a couple 3-1 plus underdogs coming through. So that's always exciting for me to see as a primary underdog bettor, a little bit of that, revenge. And let's see if we can keep that ball rolling this week, because a lot of big favorites, that's been the theme of pay-per-views this year. But I think that there's some fights where maybe the lines are a little bit wide for my taste. So I'm happy to discuss with you, gentlemen.
It's so exciting. I really can't wait. This really is a great card. I know that we had a few fights fall off, but like you said, Liam, I think that you've gotten matchups that I can really look forward to at every single slot on the card here. Seriously. So yeah, I mean, without further ado, shout out to all you amazing folks in the chat here. Kiwi, one of the founding fathers of Chronic Combat Conversations, members of the channel. So shout out to you for being the guy. And then Tristan, yeah, Liam is the man. Shout out to him, stepping up, short notice. Sometimes an opponent has to pull out, but that doesn't mean you can't find a top contender to take their place. And I think we even made an upgrade. So anywho,
Liam, is that 2 short notice appearances in 1 week for you, Liam? Is that true?
Exactly, my man. When I get the call, I try not to say no. That's all. When I get the call, I try not to say no.
That's incredible.
He's one of those guys that embodies anyone, anywhere, anytime. I love it.
It's so good. But you guys are seriously in for a treat. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please throw a like on this video. And without further ado, what you people came here for, we've got the main event. It's Alexandre the Cannibal Pantoja versus Fly Guy Kai Asakura. What an absolute banger of a main event here. I think we get fireworks no matter what, and I'm so interested to see where these two awesome guys I'm breaking down the show with end up on their final pick and prediction here, because I'm just having a tough time discerning through the chaos. Like, I could see a way either guy has a path to finishing here. Pantoja, absolutely fantastic back takes. Probably, I mean, it's as good as it gets. Doing things you just don't see on a regular basis in the octagon or in grappling in general. This guy is as high level as it gets. And Kai Asakura, I mean, talk about fighting off the back foot, having power in either hand, using all of your weapons. I mean, he's got step-in knees, he's got elbows, he's got counters off the back foot. Like, when Alexandre Pantoja goes hands down, crashing into the pocket, I mean, he's going to be meeting a Mack truck on the other end. And I'm just so interested to see where this fight does end up going in the long run, because I could see where Asakura is going to have a lot of success to start off each round as he manages the distance. using the circular effect of the octagon, he should be able to kind of maintain his range a little bit better than in a ring where you could get cut off, trapped in a corner, not trapped in the closet. We hopefully, though, that's not happening. But Kai Asakura, he's also been known to
standing here.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise like himself in the closet. I asked myself, I want Tom Cruise come out the closet, please.
So we ask ourselves, is Kai Asakura gonna be in the pocket? And is he gonna be accepting damage and takedown attempts from Pantoja? Because that's where the danger really starts to come in. So I personally, just watching the tape, it comes down to Asakura gives up his back way too much for my liking. And Pantoja's been hurt plenty of times. I understand. We've seen it over and over again. But until he's fully put out, I don't care, old gloves, new gloves, whatever, I got to see it to believe it. So Pantoja never been finished with all the UFC experience, not having to travel across time zones. He's the guy that's, known what it's like under the UFC lights at least. But let's not downplay, Ryzen and Kai Asakura and all he's done over there. So the guys that he's lost to, Horiguchi, Manel Kopp, even his last fight, that's a 2-for-1 night. So I can give anyone a little bit of a pass if they're losing the decision. But at the end of the day, we got a banger. I'm going with the favorite -265, but I'm much more interested in just this fight, not like starting round 3 at nice plus money. Guru, what are you thinking?
You like starting round 3 at plus money?
No, fight not to start round 3. No, they're
fight
pure
not
chaos.
To start round 3 plus money.
This thing is not even under 2.5. We're going fight doesn't start round 3. Yeah.
That is quite interesting. I kind of have to lean your way as well. I think you're seeing the line start to react to the fact that Pantoja, who at once was a finisher, right? Or quote unquote at once was a finisher, right? Has now had 3 decisions in a row, but he's had them against fairly durable guys, except, maybe the Urseg one, which really doesn't look as good right now, right? A win that, going into round 5 was tied 2-2, maybe doesn't age as well as the Royval and Brandon Moreno wins, which certainly do age much better. I think to your point, TB, about the Kai Asakura fights, I know the 2-in-1 night thing was definitely tough for him, but guess what, bud? His opponent also fought 2-in-1 night. Dude's much smaller than him, and he just out-grappled him, outworked him the entire fight. And I've seen now multiple fights where Kai does give up his back, spends a little bit too much time on bottom, and when he tries to scramble up from bottom, he'll kind of give up his neck or his back and be in not great positions. I think both of these guys, I think it's fairly obvious if you watch any tape or any fights at all that these guys don't have the best striking defense, but only one of them has been knocked out, right? As you highlighted. And Kai, unfortunately, has been knocked out 3 times. So I do lean with the favorite here. And at -265, he has to get the finish, right? Because otherwise the price is not playable. So I like Pantoja by finish at -110. So that's kind of where I'm going to go. I think he probably gets the club and sub. I think it happens that way, but there's no way I'm just going to take sub when Kai has been knocked out 3 times, and I'm not just going to take knockout, even though that's a really sexy price at +460 when Pantoja really hasn't knocked out anybody in the UFC. So I'm just going to go with the finish. I kind of like it in the 2-3-4 range, but I feel like I've spoken enough. Mr. Liam, please, what do you got for this main event? And by the way, you're good with the facts and the stats. Has there ever been another time where a UFC debutant gets the title opportunity? Right? From free agency straight to the title?
That's an interesting question. And honestly, I can't think of a parallel off the top of my head, but it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. I think it's been a little while though, right? Even Urseg was considered wow, kind of got fast tracked there, and he had a few fights in the UFC before that opportunity.
4 fights, right.
So I think that this is the kind of fight where, Dana White is putting on his promotional cap and he's saying, most of the time he's saying, if it's not the UFC, it means nothing. They suck, and then in this case, he's like, of course, like this guy's world class. We just have to figure out if he's the best in the world. And I think that Kai Asakura has proven that he could beat world class fighters. I mean, he's got a great list of scalps at home. And the one thing that's a kind of irony between these two fighters is on the Ultimate Fighter when Pantoja lost, it was to the same guy that beat him in that one-night tournament, Asakura. And Asakura does have a win over him as well. So you look back, Asakura seems like a guy, and this is my humble opinion as an outsider, seems to have a problem with rematches. And I could just tell you from my own experience, I didn't want to wrestle somebody twice. If I beat you once, I was like, that's it. Like, let's just call it and be done with it. You know what I'm saying? That was my mentality when I was young. And it's in part because that's the easier way, right? It's to just have the win and kind of clean your hands of it. But it's a lot scarier to go in there with the thought of what will people think if I lose to a guy that I already beat, right? Did I get worse? Is he getting better than me? He surpassed me, right? He passed me by. These kind of things. It's a lot easier to get motivated to go get revenge on somebody that beat you before than it is to say like, yeah, I did it. Let's go do it again. It's a little bit different psychology. So I think he's had a problem with that, honestly, just throughout his career. You look back, maybe he's just easier to game plan for once you fought him once. Maybe that's the case, but that's been his prolific problem. Fight somebody twice, he's going to lose that second one. But, one crack at this guy, the one thing that's interesting about him, I think he can create his win in a moment of opportunity. Odds makers taking a guy that, has no UFC experience, right? Never been under the bright lights, all these things. But you look at where he's at, he's the guy who's favored to win the fight by knockout in terms of how they're pricing it. Plus 370, what I'm seeing, the best available price for Asakura by KO. Meanwhile, Pantoja, like you mentioned, up in the plus 400 range. So I think that they're respecting the power here from Asakura. And I think you really have to, right? Rare to have a puncher like this in this kind of division. But you see the damage that he can inflict, right? Breaking people's faces. That's not something that every middleweight will do over the course of their career. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it just seems like a guy like Kai Asakura.
Just ask Marvin Vettori.
Yeah. But I think that what I look at is like, does this guy have, 5 rounds worth of fighting in him? The way he fights, the way he skirts around the outside. The other thing that's like a big dynamic most people aren't touching on is, does his game translate ring to cage? I think certainly there's elements that will translate, but there's kind of these weird interchanges in some of these fights where they're like along the cage ropes and like people are pulling them and like moving them. And like, it's just a weird dynamic, right? Whereas the cage is just very unforgiving. You get pressed into it. Somebody could just stop you from moving then. So for me, his movement is also going to be interesting. It's going to be a big cage for pay-per-view, but I think that we're going to have to see how, he manages that distance. It's going to be a little bit different. For me, his win condition is early. It's probably in the first 3 rounds here. To your point, I think the longer the fight goes on, the more likely it is that Pantoja will get to the back. And Asakura never been submitted. So it's hard to say like, hey, something that's never happened before is like the most likely outcome. But is this the best grappler he's ever fought? I think so, in terms of just what Pantoja is able to do to high-level guys in the UFC. But on the other side, I would just say Asakura, for me, that Juan Archuleta fight was pretty impressive. There were some moments of adversity, right? He was getting touched a little bit. He was backing up, certainly. And there was a little bit of inactivity that I do find could be his undoing here, where Pantoja will try to fill those gaps. But when he throws and counters with intent, he seems to do a lot of damage. And I love his finishing instincts. That's one thing where Pantoja has been hurting a couple of these guys recently. And it's almost like he's been letting them off the hook, which is surprising, right? He's the cannibal, right? He does have those finishing, records, especially prior to the UFC. But it has seemed a little bit like he's more content to ride out these positions and things like that. And I think that a guy like Kai Asakura, you want to get him out of there as quickly as possible, because the longer he's out there, the more chance he has to try and connect one of those big power counters. And it could just take one for him. So if you're going to leave him out there for 5 rounds, like, yeah, I think Asakura is probably going to try and empty the tank early, but I also think that if you're a Pantoja backer, you're wanting to see him go out there and try and close the show. So when I was talking about this one on Wager Wars, I said that the thing that stood out to me was the fight not to go the distance. And it's very juice. So that's why I kind of just would pass on this probably overall. I have a slight lean towards Asakura being the value side, but it just doesn't feel like a fight I have a big edge. Pantoja, he's right at that age where champions start to fall off. Like, let's just be frank. We've seen it a bunch of times, and it's normally more pronounced in the lighter weight classes than the heavier weight classes. Speed matters, but a 31-year-old against a 34-year-old, not a massive difference in age, right? It's not a substantial gap. And then on the other side of things, UFC jitters are real. We've seen it a million times with guys that fought in big organizations and all these things. But then it feels different when it's the big bright lights of a pay-per-view, and essentially you're fighting for the biggest opportunity in your career. If he wins the fight, massive stardom. But I also think people might underrate, what Asakura means to the UFC business model. So that's why he's getting this opportunity without having to go in and put it on the line against other people. They're like, hey, man, one shot at greatness here. But this guy does numbers on a lot of social media platforms. And I think that they would be very happy to have a star from this part of the world. So just take that for whatever it's worth. I think the UFC, there's a reason they tried to streamline him to the opportunity, but it's a dime's edge, right? If Pantoja gets his back, I think he's probably going to close the show. But I think Kai Asakura has knockout power on the feet. I agree with the books that he's more likely to win this fight by knockout than Pantoja.
Definitely. I love the analysis. Think it's going to be a wild fight, and we're in for a few of those. So without further ado, let's make our way to the co-main event. Another one of said amazing matchups. Instead of the Bilal Muhammad Shavkat Rakhmonov experience, we'll save that breakdown for potentially the future. But today we have Shavkat minus 375 versus Ian the Future Machado Garry plus 295, over 2.5 minus 195. Man, this fight, it seems like the clash of the undefeated, and the market shifted towards an over. But wait, it's a 5-round fight. So this is where it gets really spicy. Just imagine a world where Ian Garry, he likes to skirt a bit on the outside, fight as the counter fighter. Shavkat, he likes to get in people's faces, throw out some volume. He trusts his chin. He trusts his wrestling. And I think if he thinks this is going to go like it used to be in the training room where he once submitted Machado Garry, well, guess what? He's got Charles Oliveira and Chute Box Diego Lima in his corner now. So I think his grappling is going to be okay here. It's just a matter of attrition over time. And looking at the size of these guys' heads, it's like, well, we've seen Garry kind of drop before, and he recovers. And we've seen Shavkat hurt before on the regional scene and recover. It's just, I think Shavkat's proven a bit more of an iron chin to this point in subsequent matchups. Like, he got into the exchanges with Jeff Neal, where Machado Garry is like, let me do my best to avoid any of that nonsense, which is smart. I mean, I don't mean to say it as any type of takeaway from his game. The guy's incredibly smart. But what's also smart is knowing that, what? It's now or never. We got to take Shavkat, and whether I win or lose, this is a more important matchup than Joaquin Buckley at this juncture. So this is a great opportunity for Garry, but what's the cost, right? And the cost is that Shavkat probably is going to go out and take this fight. I think he's the way stronger and more physical fighter. And while I don't think this is just going to be a firefight on the feet, if this ends up a clinch battle, some grappling exchanges, I trust Rakhmonov's brute power and force, and I haven't seen anything to worry about his cardio. Now, where it gets interesting, fight to start round 4, plus 110 on Fanatics. That's where I came to play. And I've seen some people with some great ideas of a Shavkat round 4-5 decision. I think he could finish it late. I could also see Garry just kind of being defensive enough to make it the distance while absorbing more damage throughout the fight. So the pick is Shavkat. The play is fight starts round 4. And if Shavkat gets a nice early finish, well, that's just the cost of entry, right? And we're probably going to be enjoying that finish. It's going to be disgusting if it happens quickly. So I'll pick Shavkat here. Guru, what do you got cooking?
You muted, dog.
You are muted.
Love it. I think it's a very, very dangerous play, but it's definitely one that in this type of fight where you have such a heavy favorite, it's the kind of play that I'm kind of interested in. you watch Shavkat's last 2 fights, he takes Stephen Wonderboy Thompson to the absolute end of round 2. I mean, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson is a shell of what he once was. Not that he was ever a fantastic grappler or anything, but I'm just not unbelievably impressed by him mauling Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He also kind of gets into a solid war with Jeff Neal, a controlled war, the fight that he probably wants. But nonetheless, he's taken shots. That's the fight we've seen the most metal from Shavkat. A late round 2 finish versus Neil Magny. So you've got a guy that's gotten 2 finishes in the last 10 seconds of round 2 and the last 50 seconds of round 3 in his last 3 fights. He's now facing a guy that's much, much higher level than all 3 of those guys. He's younger than all 3 of those guys. He's faster than all 3 of those guys. So for that reason, I do kind of like the over here. I think TB made fantastic points about Shavkat being the stronger guy, probably being the more physical guy. One thing he didn't say, which I will say, is I think he's a better mixer of the martial arts than Ian Garry. Ian needs to rely on continuing to move, circle the outside, move, and it's just stick and move, right? Tons of kicks. You kind of watch him in that MVP fight. He's getting tagged plenty. He's not happy plenty. And I think you were mentioning it, TB, like he kind of uses his own offensive wrestling to get a break from the feet, to mix it up. That's not an option here. And I'm sure he knows that. So I love the fact that these guys have trained together, because a lot of times when these guys train together, there's like this, I don't know, maybe I'm just fixating on it because it's like one of the later fights on this card. But look at the Volkov and Pavlovich fight. They train together too. Oh, Pavlovich's going to knock him out round 1. Blah, blah, blah. Nope, Volkov just outpaces him to a decision. Who picked that? Only TB. So, these are the types of things that we like to consider. We like to fade the narrative, but not a little too far. I think Ian Garry could get it done if it goes far enough in the distance, because you know that these judges are not fucking watching the fight. So I still think Shavkat gets it done. And he might get a late finish. So I guess after all that blibber blabber, I'm going to go Shavkat round 4-5 decision as well. I've talked myself into that prop if that's plus money.
Plus 180.
Please, Liam. Oh, my God, yeah. Let's go. Liam, talk to me, baby. What do you think?
Well, I must say, gentlemen, I'm not the only Irishman stepping up on short notice, right? A guy in Ian Garry who's willing to take on the tougher fights in the division. Colby Duckington, wasn't picking up the phone for Shavkat Rakhmonov's name. I'll just let you know that right off the rip. And on the other side of things, I think Ian gets a lot of hate. Some of it deserved, much of it a little bit overblown. And when you look at the skills, in Cage Warriors, I thought he showed off fantastic grappling. I've been expecting him to submit somebody in the UFC since he got here. I feel like when he went out there against Neil Magny and didn't submit him, it was more a function of his own stupidity and arrogance. He's just like, he destroyed him on the feet. It was not a competitive fight for a second, but you just look at the fight and he was out there leg kicking Neil Magny into a hospital room instead of just going out there and finishing the job, which he takes him down in the final few seconds of the fight and has a choke all but locked up right as the fight is expiring, right? So it's could he have submitted him? My personal opinion, yes. And you look back against MVP, it's a crime that he didn't submit him, right? He should be, arrested for not finishing, as Magic would say. Shout out to Magic. But you look back, it's this is a guy in Ian Garry who is now showing off a little bit of that development. MVP is not an easy guy to submit. People will rag on his grappling. You could take him down. No doubt about it. Is he an easy guy to submit? I don't think we know that. You just go look at his MMA record. You guys tell me, but it's I look at Ian Garry, went out there, almost finished him in the first round, and then found a way to win the fight. And the difference to me between Ian Garry and Shavkat Rakhmonov is Shavkat is a killer. You know what I'm saying? You look at Shavkat, he has all the killer instinct that you'd ever want from a fighter. He knows how to go out there and separate somebody from consciousness, whether it's taking their life, like Jeff Neal, into his own hands, where he's lifting the guy off the ground with the choke. really impressive stuff. You look at the fact I never use the word lock in all the years that I do this. Like, you guys won't find examples of me saying it. The lock of it's just not really for me, right? But I called him Shavkat Rakhmonov when he was going to fight Neil Magny. I was like, this guy is going to grapple, and when he does, he's going to do whatever he wants. And I bet multiple units on Shavkat by submission there. I used to call him 20-unit Magny because I made so much money fading him via submission. So Ian Garry fumbled that bag. And I do think bettors and the fans are a little bit frustrated with his style because he's clearly better than a lot of these guys, but he goes out there and fights them to competitive-ish decisions, right? And meanwhile, Shavkat goes out there and eliminates people. He's like a cyborg, come forward until they're dead. And for me, that means the earlier this fight ends, the much more likely it is that Shavkat wins it. The fact that the fight is favored now to go over 2.5 rounds is interesting to me because I think of what is the path to Ian Garry winning the fight. Do I think he's going to go out there and kill Shavkat Rakhmonov? Like, I guess anything's possible, right? Daniel Rodriguez, I'll just note, has never been stopped with strikes before or since, right? He did get submitted by Neil Magny, but you look back, the guy has been a pretty tough guy throughout his career. He's been hurt a couple times, really hard to put away. Ian Garry just went out there, kicked him in the head, followed him to the ground, punched him out. Like, he does have some nice finishes on his record as well. But you look at most of his wins, they're decisions, right? He just goes out there and puts out more volume. You look at the stats that you guys have displayed on the screen, it's like Ian Garry probably more likely to land more at distance if the fight goes 25 minutes. Is it going to be close? Yeah, I think so. But would I favor Ian Garry in a fight that goes 5 rounds? Maybe not favor him, but for me, it would be like pick him. You know what I mean? In a 5-round fight, like if this goes all 5. Now, if it doesn't, then I think that Shavkat is the deserved favorite. So that's just the way I see this fight. Would I live bet Ian Garry? Would I bet Ian Garry in a decision-only market? Yes. Would I consider the money line? I mean, at 3-1, I would consider it. But it's hard for me to fade Shavkat. I do really respect him. I think that he's a future champion. But I think Ian Garry's going to compete for titles too. So let's find out.
I'm with you. I really am with you. And I think
and by the way, Shavkat said the same thing. He said, I'm going to win this fight, but Ian Garry will fight for the title at some point in the future. And he's trained with the guy. So it's not just my opinion,
That's smart. It's smart. I love this matchup. I think it's going to be a fun one I think it goes the full 25, but I'm at least willing to bet it goes 15. So plus money over Fanatics. Make sure you scrap that before it's gone. And we're moving along. Shout out to all you guys in the chat right now. What's going on, Bonino? Hell yeah. And yeah, it is a busy week for Liam. Shout out to him for making sure he joined the Chronic Combat Boys. And yeah, pretty terrible tattoos. I agree. Shout out to Effie Any Action. Let's
not great.
Not great, Bob. Bongamin Sirilgan versus Drago Alexander Volkov. We have great matchup of big men forces. Heavyweight.
I like that each one got their own I like that each one got their own individual accent as well. You did your best French you did your best French accent, and you did your best Russian accent.
Yes, we bring fight for people. Bone Gamin here at minus 375. Well, we've seen this dance before, except last time it was 5 rounds, and Cyril Gane dances his way, swinging, banging, landing a couple more strikes here and there, just being the generally faster guy, and wins a pretty clean decision. All the commentating team could talk about in that fight was Alexander Volkov's PTSD from the Curtis Blades fight, how he gained so much weight, how he just was terrified of anything clinch takedown related. He did not want anything to think of it. Now, I think he's embraced it a little bit more. Don't think he's as scared these days. But at the same time, I mean, who's going to be the dusty bitch and shoot first here? I don't think anybody. I think we get another pitter-patter. Oopsies. Another pitter-patter, like, back and forther here. And, yeah, I think it's going to be too close for me to want to pull the trigger on minus 375. But, like, what really changed, right? I mean, they're still the same guys. I don't really anticipate that anyone's done enough to level up to be able to finish the other striker in this matchup. Nobody's going to be actively shooting for takedowns. If they do, well, that's a game changer, and that's not something I'm factoring into the breakdown here. But if anyone was going to, I kind of think it would be Volkov more at this juncture. Just given, I don't know, but even so, that's projecting. I just don't actually think it's going to happen. So Cyril Gane, probably super tight decision. Did he drop the first round, the first fight? That's up for debate. A couple of the judges saw it different ways.
But TB, I have a question for you, and I bet this will intrigue Liam as well. Did you say that you feel the guys are about the same as they were?
Right. So what was the line last time?
There it is, baby. You know exactly where I'm going. Cyril Gane was a minus 155 favorite. 155.
Yeah, and we bet
375.
No,
it's dog
I
or
know
pass.
likey.
It has to be, because what you need from it, I think the fight's going the distance. And what you need from Gane is to outpace Volkov. He needs to fire 2-1, which he really has shown no problem to do throughout his UFC career. I just like what I've seen from Volkov lately. I've seen him fight. I haven't seen Gane fight lately. I do think Gane inevitably does get it done, and it goes the distance. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. These judges are not watching the fight. So if it's going the distance, I just don't see how you can lay minus 400 on Cyril Gane. It's just inconceivable. I honestly also think Volkov has more power. Maybe I'm crazy for that. I think he's got more power in his hands at least.
Oh, he's got way more finishes by knockout, just in general.
Yeah. So I think that could be really interesting. So definitely, other way to fade the narrative here, right, is the finish. These are heavyweights.
Under 2.5
this line is like right. This line is like they're straw weights. What am I looking at? So something's gonna hit here. Something big will hit. I'm just not sure which. I lean Gane getting it done, but can't bet him. And I lean the over, but can't bet that either. So I'm not very much help here. Maybe Liam will be better help.
Yeah, I actually bet Gane the first time that these guys fought. It was like minus 150. I thought that was a good bet, right? And it was also 5 rounds to work with. I was like, Gane's game over 5 rounds just seems pretty reliable in that kind of matchup. The thing is, when you ask what has changed, number one, Gane kind of got exposed. John Jones taking him down and submitting him, no skin off your nose, but it's the way it happened, right? I said, if it was that Jim Miller guillotine that just got Damon Jackson, you'd never hear a peep out of me, but it's I go for guillotines all the time. I don't think that one was going to tap anybody at Renzo Gracie Warwick, man. I don't think he wanted to be there. I'll just tell you the truth. So that I don't love to see, right? Additionally, I think people forget. I bet Tai Tuivasa plus 4 something against Cyril Gane, and he sent him flying across the octagon. And then Cyril Gane recovered in that fight and then beat his ass. So no doubt about it. Cyril Gane, clear winner, clearly much better than Tuivasa. But you look back at that fight, Tuivasa is a banger. That's it. He's a pretty limited heavyweight with a lot of power, and he went out there and just threw some hands with this guy and was able to land. I think the one thing about Volkov is he tried to be a little bit meaner, a little bit more assertive in these recent fights. I mean, Sergey Pavlovich, right, was widely regarded as one of the most devastating knockout artists in the division. And he just went out there and peppered his face up with jabs, turned his face into a tomato, and made him really frustrated to the point where Pavlovich trying to fight him after the bell and their teammates, right? It's that was what Volkov did in that spot. And you look at some of these other fights, the one thing that makes me hesitate to go with the Volkov side here is he really doesn't complete takedowns, right? Unless he knocks him down, it's kind of hard to imagine him getting on top per se. But then you just look back and you're like, okay, wait, Gane fell over against Tuivasa. When he gets to the top position, is he a really sophisticated top player? Is he a savant? Is his passing stand out? No, he falls back for leg locks like a goofy and loses title opportunities. So you look at the guys he's lost to and it's all fair. It's hey, the guy doesn't have that much experience. He's losing to good guys. But the last time out, I would have made Volkov like a -2, or excuse me, I would have made Gane like a -230 or something, right? That's why I was like -150. I mean, forget it. Like I got to take Gane here. I didn't think it was like, Gane should be like a -5,000. Like Volkov forgot how to fight. The guy is, 38 professional MMA wins or something. Like he clearly knows how to fight in every phase. And I think the line is a little bit disrespectful. So for me, it's a dogger pass at the number, like you mentioned. And I agree with you again about the total. Like, could it just be another Gane decision? Maybe. Last time they had 5 rounds to work. I think sometimes that works against action in the UFC. How many times do we see main events go the distance, even with guys that are known finishers? And it's in part because they don't want to sell out for the finish and then find themselves like in between the, round 2 and 3, right? So I think that that's something we always have to be cognizant of. And now they've got 3 rounds to work with, not a lot of time. And 15 minutes at heavyweight. Neither one of these guys is young. Both these guys have been finished before, and Gane, no losses by knockout, but Volkov 6-1 career to the knockout in the UFC. Not here, there, and ever in the UFC, 6-1 career to the knockout. And Gane on the other side, 4-0, but got dropped and almost splattered by Tuivasa, who's a lesser fighter than Volkov, as we saw when they squared off. Volkov owned him on the feet, on the ground, here, there, and everywhere. So I think that this is a fun fight, and hopefully they have a little more action than last time. I think if Volkov is a little more confident and assertive with his boxing, he can compete here. But if he's going to go out there and just try and pepper leg kicks again, then he's going to lose. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, fully agreed there. I'm not fully willing to place like a pre-fight money line. I feel like, you kind of hit all the great points there. And Volkov sub plus 2,800. Hey, listen, crazier things have happened, right? And given the level we've seen, who knows? But appreciate all you guys here in the live chat right now. Really amazing that you choose to join us on this wonderful Thursday evening with our fantastic guest, Liam Picks Fights. Make sure you're following him. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Costs you nothing, supports and helps us out so much, more than you could imagine. But we're here to have a good time, so we're going to keep on going. We got Thug Nasty, Bryce Mitchell at -850. Versus Crone Scooter Gracie. Oh boy, we've got just the matchup of a lifetime. This is, come on, he's a scooter, not a skeeter.
I hate it. I would have accepted Honey Nut Scooter.
Honey Nut Scooter.
Because those are the Walmart brand ripoff of Honey Nut Cheerios.
That's actually kind of hilarious.
I know, and that's why it's stuck in my brain, because it's fucking ridiculous.
All right, well, Scooter McGavin.
Scooter.
That's pretty terrible. All right, so Thug Nasty. Who wants to bet a Thug Nasty at -850? Not really anybody, right? You do?
I need it. I want to lay 8.5 units to win one. I need it.
All right. Well, our friend Shady was asking if you quit the AIDS parlays. I think we caught him red-handed because he's
not a little bit. I've trimmed some of the fat.
A little bit.
What's Bryce Mitchell by decision? -200. I'd rather parlay that in an AIDS parlay, because I mean, even though plus like 500 Bryce Mitchell submission is probably the way you would want to attack it and be fun. It's just not. You're not submitting Crone Gracie. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Bryce by decision. But is it possible he's too concussed from the Josh Emmett fight, and maybe he somehow fumbles the bag here?
Maybe.
Is it possible, or is it possible they strike and they don't even grapple? What's gonna happen? We've seen Crone pull off the upset. Oh, okay.
Here was my thought.
Why don't you give it to us?
Thug Nasty by knockout +500?
He can't strike.
I mean, he knocked down Edson Barbosa on the feet.
That's because he was so afraid of the takedown.
Right. Well, Scooter's going to be pulling guard as Bryce goes to throw a little jab. So maybe it'll be scored as a knockdown. Ultimately, I just
he has 0 knockouts in his UFC, and he's got 0 knockouts in his pro career. It's a bad.
I'm passing.
It's bad.
I'm passing. I'm all right here. Well, I don't need to dig into Grandma's couch cushions for this fight. I'm good. It's Bryce Mitchell. If you need him in your parlay, find your -120 favorite that you need to get closer to plus money. Unless Liam, can you take us to the
split decision?
No,
do you like split, Liam?
I'll be perfectly honest with you guys.
Do it.
Part of my like long-term strategy in terms of betting on underdogs, and it's been a tough racket this year, but it's always been being willing to look like a fool, right? Like that is part of the risk when you bet on an underdog. It's like they're priced like a big dog because there's a chance that they have no chance, right? Like there's a chance they go out there and embarrass themselves. But here's a few of the things that I will note. When I looked at Gracie, he's training, it seemed like with his own gym in terms of training with some grapplers, some high level guys. But also what I saw was him going into Mac Danzig's MMA school, getting some work with his MMA team. Mac Danzig, former UFC fighter. So it seemed to me like he was trying to get a little bit more of a normal MMA look, doing some bag work. Does he look like, Johnny Boxing on the mitts or punching the bag? No, he does not. But when I look at Bryce Mitchell on the other side, I think there's a few reasons to doubt him covering these kind of prices in his fights. And it's not to say he hasn't looked like this before, right? Against Edson Barboza, that was one of the times I thought, he covered a price like that. He just went out there and dominated the fight, got on top early, landed that big knockdown. And one knockdown into dominant top control can change the nature of a fight because now the other guy's exhausted from being on bottom. And, being in a panicky situation where they're like, wow, I'm hurt. And this guy is way better than me at grappling, wants to be here more. How do I save myself? Right. We saw Chase Hooper go out there and drop Slava Borshev, and everybody wants to discredit that knockdown. It's for the same reason, right? It's like, I'm out here not worried about you punching me in my face. I'm worried about you taking me down. Then you punch me in my face. Good strategy. So I think of a guy like Bryce Mitchell as, the more complete MMA fighter by far. The guy who's got a higher upside, he could beat probably a better fighter in the UFC. But when I look at the matchup, it's always a 1-to-1, right? MMA is not who else could I beat? And it's like, what will happen if these two guys square off? And do I think Bryce Mitchell could get submitted by Gracie if he could get submitted by Brad Katona? Like, yes, I just simply do. And when you look back at how that played out, he got out-grappled, right? When you look at the Ilia Topuria fight, they were out there banging it out a little bit on the feet. Bryce Mitchell, hats off to him. He's a tough country boy. He's willing to go out there and throw. And in that fight, he got busted up. He got raggedy tired. And he says, I was sick. Okay, fair enough. Again, it's the champion, Ilia Topuria. You take nothing away from him. But Yusuf Zalal went out there and made Ilia work. And these other guys, gave him fights, right? Then you look at that fight, it's like he went out there and grappling's his specialty. And he got ripped back to the ground and tapped out with the choke. So you look back, his grappling is good. Is it lights out, sensational, can beat every single guy? Maybe not, right? He went nip tuck with Dan Ige, right? Nip tuck, needed the takedowns, desperately needed them, right? Without the takedowns, this is the fight. So again, is Dan Ige a better striker than Gracie? Lord, of course he is. But all I will say is, Krone's explanation for the Jourdain fight was, I went out there to just do jiu-jitsu and not throw a punch. Boy, did it look like that. In this fight, I do not expect him to do that, right? The other thing is Jourdain hurts people. He knocks people down. He rocks people. He finishes people. You look at his fights. He's fought experienced-ass guy. Who's the easy fight he's had in the UFC? Cub Swanson's been around forever. Alex Caceres, been around for a long time, had 1 million UFC fights, won more of them than he's lost. And then you look back, he won that fight with one move. Duck under, took the back, fight's over. Like, could he not take this guy's back and then finish the fight? Yeah, he could. Like, I just don't see a world in which Gracie forgot jiu-jitsu or is like physically inept. I see pictures of him looking like he may be, 100%. And this is pure speculation. Maybe found the Garden of Life supplements, right? All of a sudden now he's got veins coming back out of his shoulders that I didn't see, before in pictures. And I'm just like, maybe with the absence of USADA, Gracie is going to try and take advantage of that. So when it's a fight like this, I'll just tell you, I'm always not going to be on the minus 800, right? But sometimes I'm just like, it's a pass. I don't see anything. I just see a guy whose best skills are on the mat against a guy who has won the ADCCs. And I'm like, he's plus 600, just doesn't feel right to me. So, yeah, it's a dogger 100%. Pass as far as I'm concerned, honestly.
I like that
you make a ton of fantastic points. Only one of them's ever been submitted. It's a ton of – What is Bryce Mitchell's upside at minus 850? We already highlighted that we don't think he's going to submit Crone. So he's just going to lay on top of him for 15 minutes? I'm not convinced he's the better striker at all. You're 1,000% right, Liam. You're 1,000% right. You have to take the stab on Crone here.
I didn't even mention that he's coming off a life-changing knockout. Can we talk about the fact that Gracie, he had a really embarrassing performance. Bryce Mitchell was nearly killed in the octagon by a punch.
Yes. Yes. I thought I'm not
comparing Crone to Josh Emmett. I'm saying, where is his confidence at? Is he going to be out there like, yes, let's go exchange? Or is he going to be a little more timid and a little bit like more skittish, or maybe panic wrestle into a bad situation against the guy who really knows what he's doing? Most people will not engage with Gracie on the ground. Obviously, Jourdain, a black belt, was willing to do that when he got tired. But it's like, if Bryce Mitchell goes out there and shoots a takedown in the first 60 seconds, are you going to feel great about minus 850? Maybe you do, but I would personally. That's just the way I see it, man.
I like that perspective a lot. I agree with you. Grateful dude. We are grateful for you. And yes, we do appreciate Liam's thought process. Love that. Getting a little sip of the coffee, keeping him on along. And we're moving on along here. I love that dog shot idea. But we've got Nate the Train in the UFC. Woo! Landwehr versus Duho, the Korean Superboy Choi. And then after watching the Road to the UFC week, now I'm totally doubting if we've been pronouncing his name correctly the whole time. Then I'm like, well, he's Korean, not Chinese, so maybe we have been doing it right. I'm not going to overthink it. I know, like,
what should it be? What would it be otherwise?
Like Shay, there's like a Choi last time that was like Shay or something. Like, I'm like, I don't know. So I'm trying to keep. Oh, Jays. Well, I'm trying to keep track of everything here. I'm doing my best. So Duho Choi, we appreciate you. And Nate the Train, I mean, oh my God, is this just not like a Hall of Fame war as far as matchmaking goes? Like, they couldn't have done a better job putting together two absolute fireworks, firecrackers, I should say, to give us a nice fireworks display at UFC 310. Because this bad boy, I mean, what is this? Kick off the main card? Is that right? Am I on? Yeah, it does. It kicks off the main card, and this is going to just absolutely set the tone for the whole rest of the night. Now, my predictions here, I mean, we've seen Nate Landwehr hurt in the first 3 minutes in every single fight he's ever been in his life. The question is, what happens from that point? Does he go out? Does it kind of slow him down? Or does Nate the Train just start absolutely rolling along? I'm going super.
What if I told you that I don't care and I'm just going to play fight goes the distance? How does that make you feel?
Wow. That's very interesting. Now, I could totally see it happening. Both guys, notably durable. Choi, his finished losses, yeah, they happened for sure. They were to pretty high-level opponents, and they did come a while ago. And I think he's made like a body composition change ever since his service time, or maybe during his service time, or maybe, super soldier serum. You know what I mean? So, Duho Choi coming back, though, I mean, he's the one rocking the top time. Should have been rolling to like a nice 30-27. Oh, no, there's a headbutt. Well, God dang it, how do we end up at a 28-28 draw on multiple scorecards here? Kyle Nelson kind of got away with one there. It was very interesting to see how that fight played out. And then you see in the Bill Algeo fight, well, Choi, he doesn't simply just get like held down. It's either he's threatening with a front choke attempt, getting a submission attempt, but then using that eventually to work back to his feet. And, things might take a minute. Maybe he'll hold the choke a little too long as the guy jumps over. But, the general thought process is there. Use the submission to threaten something. And then when it doesn't work, all right, we're working to get back up. And then we see that he's still got technical, precise striking off the back foot, off the front foot, and he's got power to boot. Bill Algeo, never been finished before, and wouldn't you know it, his orbital explodes, and here we are. He had been finished before, but that Kyle Nelson finish, we got to have a talk with little mini Hulk in Atlantic City. That was pretty terrible. So Nate the Train, we watch him almost get finished by Jamal Emmers early, rallies back, and Jamal Emmers has been known to melt against absolutely everybody. So Nate Landwehr in this spot, I just don't know if he's going to be able to get the train back on the tracks. I think every time he's going to try to get rolling here, Choi is a very capable striker off of the back foot. And, while he's been prone to wars in the past, I think he has matured a bit. And I think we might even see him use a little bit of wrestling to his advantage when Landwehr goes to mix things up, whether it's with the front choke threat or it's with a little top time of his own. Listen, I've been wrong plenty of times. I'm taking the dog shot. I got plus 120. Think it's worth it at plus 110. But Guru, I love your idea. So let's see. Nate might be the only former M1 champ to lose this Saturday. Uh-oh. Is that a Shavkat reference? And then, yeah. Oh, man. Hope you guys are doing all right there in Kiwi land.
I think Evloev too.
Ooh, Evloev too. Look at that. Good call. All right, Guru, explain yourself. Fight goes?
Yeah, I think fight goes. The Packers just fumbled, which was terrible. I do think fight goes because a lot of the things that you said, right? When you watch these guys fight, I mean, look at Nate Landwehr's last 2 losses. Okay, he's lost 2 in his last 7, which is pretty dang good. He gets knocked out by a flying knee with Julian fucking Juicy J. Arosa for the minute that fight lasts. And you lose a decision to Danny Ige, who's just a more well-rounded, more well-polished striker and can also wrestle more frequently. So that's not surprising that he loses that one. And again, he loses to find maybe the worst loss you could have, or Herbert Burns, and it's a knockout. But again, it's a fucking knee from the clinch. He was just not expecting it, and down he goes. He's going to be expecting everything from Doo-Ho Choi. So when you're kind of ready for everything, you can weather through those shots. And I also think that, again, on the Doo-Ho Choi side, Liam picks fights mentioned earlier about Charles Jourdain's finishing ability. He hits him with a fucking awesome left cross in Korea in his debut. What an incredible knockout from Jourdain, setting up his UFC career. And Jeremy Stevens, one of the premier knockouts at featherweight in his heyday. So, again, and then maybe a decision loss to Cub Swanson in a Hall of Fame fight. This guy's displayed chin. He ate that spinning elbow from Algio last fight like it was cookies. He didn't even flinch. So I do think that this fight goes the distance. I actually trust Choi's chin more than Landwehr's, as crazy as that sounds. But the problem is I trust Landwehr's pace and pressure more than I trust Choi's. So it just leaves me in fight going the distance because I just don't want to side.
Respectable, Mr. Liam. What do you got going on here?
I think this is a tough fight to call. I really respect Nate Landwehr. Yeah, I think he's an impressive fighter. I think he's got the better wins between the two of these gentlemen. But I think you look at how he gets them, like he's got to go through the fire a lot of the time. He's got to take that whooping early, keep pressing, keep pushing. And normally it just takes guys to a place they don't want to be, right? Whether it's the chaos or whether it's the cardio, because the guy is a very high-level athlete. I think he was like a Division I track guy or something like that, but he's just a bundle of energy, right? Like the guy could just push a crazy pace, and most of the time, cardio gets taxed when you get damaged. It doesn't seem like that's really the case most of the time for Nate. He could keep pushing more often than not, So I think about how this fight plays out. Like the earlier it ends, kind of like the Shavkat Garry dynamic, the more likely it is that Choi wins, in my opinion, because we have seen Nate get buzzed. The thing that really jumps out, if you just look at the graphic you guys put up, total knockdown rate 1-4. I mean, that's really bad, right? It's like that's really not so good. And on the other side, you got a powerful puncher, 4-3. So he's getting knocked down less. He's knocking people down more, and he's never been finished in the first round. So something a little unconventional for the DraftKings users out there. I do not have DraftKings. They don't let me in the door there. I got to call customer service or something. I've been threatening to do that for years, but they've just left me in a verification loophole for a long time. So in any case, if you look at their markets, they offer some things that a lot of books don't offer. And one of the things that they have is the first round money line. And they have Nate Landwehr favored on the first round money line, I think in part because he's coming off that KO1 last time out against Jamal Emmers. But when I look at this fight, like Could these guys finish each other in the first round? Maybe. But you look at Nate Landwehr, his fights are longer on average than Choi's. And when you look at Choi, like, he's never been finished in the first round. He's had a couple fights that went sideways in the second round, right? But early on, he comes out sharp with his counters. He comes out, pretty focused and ready to go. So it just seems to me like he's probably going to be trying to skirt the outside, look for big moments of opportunity to counter. Nate's going to try and push the pace, and, whoever's able to get off on their game is going to win the fight. But that's just a line that seems a little bit off to me, right? I would think Choi would be favored in that first round only market when, again, a guy like Herbert Burns, if you hadn't seen that fight live, you would think it was AI generated footage, right? Like, you wouldn't believe that Herbert Burns could knock out Nate Landwehr, but he just takes damage early. And then when he's able to keep pushing, he will beat you. But when he's not, things go sideways real quick. So that's the problem with Nate. It's a fine-edged sword. And I would rather live bet Nate, right? If Nate gets blasted in the first round here and comes back out for round 2, that would be when I'd be more interested in betting on Nate at the plus money tag, personally, because I do think he might get busted up in round 1.
Yeah, I really like that idea overall, and I think if you're looking for some alternate markets, that's a really interesting one to play. I like that alternative analysis, shall we call it. All right, we're moving on here. We've got a chance for you guys to do the right thing. Please throw a like if you haven't already. It's cool. I won't call you out by name, but just go ahead and do the right thing now, because it means a lot. All right. Please don't be devastated that we had another ad break, but we've got the Devastator Dominic Reyes versus Lionheart Anthony Smith, minus 355 on the Dom Reyes side, plus 280 on the Anthony Lionheart Smith side. And I don't love the things I'm hearing from Anthony Smith in the lead up to this fight. And I don't love what I've seen from him recently in his actual fights. So I'm going to go ahead and take Dom Reyes. But, it's typically been it's either round 1 knockout or Dom extends out. So how often does Anthony Smith really get knocked out in round 1? So now this is where I ask the guru, what are you thinking in this fight?
I don't think he's getting knocked out in round 1. I mean, look at who Anthony Smith has fought. He goes to the decision with Roman Dolidze. That was a bad one. He grabs the gilly on Don't Be Silly, grab the gilly on Vitor Petrino. He at least goes till round 3 with Khalil Roundtree. Decision with Ryan Spann. Don't know how he survives to get there, but he survives to get there, right? Even the Glover Teixeira fight. He lasts until round 5. He's given the ref his teeth with taking that beating. That was a crazy one. Decision versus Rakic. He goes, or Rakic, whichever. He goes till round 2 versus Ankalaev. He breaks his fucking ankle earlier in the fight. That's tough to me. Decision with Johnny Walker in the fight that everybody and their grandma bet to go to not go the distance. So Anthony Smith has proven time and time again that he will go the distance and can at this stage in his career anyway. But I don't see Anthony Smith capitalizing on Dominic Reyes's lack of durability either. So I just kind of see them sparring and going the distance, right? Dominic Reyes's best win condition is a round 1 knockout. He's got 8 of them. Yet he's still minus 355, and the over's minus 166. I'm telling you guys right now, one of those lines is wrong. It has to be. Dom Reyes won't deserve to be a minus 355 favorite if this fight goes the distance, because it's going to look like a fucking war. And if he earns the minus 355 price tag, I think he finishes him. So give me the overs. I'll maybe even do like a little over ladder type situation. But over 1.5, fight starts round 3. Over 2.5, fight goes the distance. That type of vibe. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm crazy with these new gloves that they got back. They got the old gloves working. The OG gloves, we'll call them.
The old, back to new gloves.
Correct. But they're the old ones. Liam, what do you got? Am I crazy with my idea?
I don't think you're crazy, but I do look at it like, Dominic Reyes last time out, he's fighting a Dustin Jacoby that, he's a pretty seasoned guy on the feet. He's been hurt before, but he typically finds a way to hang around, stay in there. I mean, he got blasted, right? He just got absolutely destroyed. He was like stumbling all over the place there. And you look at Anthony Smith, and I just haven't been inspired by his recent performances, right? I thought that Lindsay was going to beat him, but it was just very lackluster, right? And he took that one kind of on short notice. But honestly, the one danger I would say with the overs and things like that is the talk I'm hearing from Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith, I feel like, has two kind of typical modes, right? And I say this from a place of respect, but like he either comes out with a defensive posture where he's like, you're not going to kill me. Like I'll hold on no matter what, and just fights his way to a decision and tries to really be within himself. Right. But then there's other times when he comes out, and I call it K1 Anthony Smith, right? Where he's like coming out with piss and vinegar. Like, I'm going to throw kicks. I'm going to throw punches. And he just like does everything he can for 3 minutes. And then he's just huffing and puffing because he's a little bit up there in years. And, it's not really his typical pace. So when he does that, he can be dangerous, but he also can slow down pretty substantially. So I have a feeling like either Anthony Smith is going to live up to what he said and like come out here and try and kill Dominic Reyes. He's like, I just need to destroy something. I'm going to go out there and, I forget winning and losing. I will just say from a sports psychology standpoint, it is important to forget winning and losing in terms of trying to get the best results out of yourself. Having an idea to just go out there and be aggressive, be relentless, that is better sports psychology than thinking I need to win at all costs. Like, because then you're going to do everything you can to prevent losing, like he said. So I think that you look at a guy like Dominic Reyes, he's very hard to trust at this kind of price. I was doing a show where I was forced to pick on Wager Wars, like a bet on every fight. And I picked Dominic Reyes because I think he's going to win the fight, right? If you just said like gun to your head, who's going to win the fight, I have to bet on every fight, but I don't feel good about it, right? Like if you look, the guy has had one win and he's been a little bit shitty, right? You talked about who survived against Ryan Spann. That would be Anthony Smith, and he's beaten him twice, right? He submitted him easily, and then he went to the decision with him. Very close fight, could have went either way, and they raised Anthony's hand. I thought they booked that fight, honestly, because they thought that Anthony Smith could beat him still. They're like, who's a guy that Anthony could beat on this roster? They're like, Spann again, and it got way worse, man. He's like clearly degrading in front of us, in terms of the performances, right? He goes from submitting Spann easily to being in a very close back and forth, disgusting decision with him. He's out there saying to Johnny Walker, like, I'm defending my family and all that. Like, there's been nothing really that inspires me about Anthony. But the one thing I'll say is I'm seeing a plus 900 on Anthony Smith by knockout when we've seen Dominic Reyes, like, knocked out multiple times in his recent fights. Like, everybody was saying this guy's the chinniest guy ever. He'll never win another fight. And then he beats one guy and people forget all about that. So I do think that the 900 is a little bit weird if we're getting K1 Anthony Smith, because I think that fight could go either way, and I think Dominic Reyes is much more likely to win it, right? If Anthony Smith is going to live up to what he said, I'm going to run into the fire. I'm going to, Dominic Reyes is just a better striker. And I think that he will show that if that fight plays out that way. I bet against Dominic Reyes when everybody was all over him in the past, right? After the John Jones fight, he was a big favorite against Blachowicz. I didn't see that. I bet Blachowicz there as a plus 200 dog. In this fight, I just don't see it with Anthony Smith. Like, I like what he's saying in the interviews, but how often do guys say shit and then not live up to it? For me, I feel like Dominic Reyes has the inclination, like I could go on a title run right now, and Anthony Smith is trying to talk himself back into it. But, just if you had booked this fight before Dominic Reyes got that recent comeback win, what would it have been? Minus 110 or something like that? That's the one thing I do think about. It's like, it's a little bit weird.
100%. You're totally right about that. There's definitely some recency bias baked into this.
Nate, I think that's a great point, man. About fearing for the over. Smith said he doesn't want to be there, and he said, I'm going to run in like a buzzsaw. Like, all these things that it's like,
no, it's his friend, not his coach, right? Because his coach is Mark Montoya.
Yeah, but he did have cancer, and the Gym Factory X is not really.
Is Mark Montoya dead? That's
I don't know. I don't know. That's a
Well, so then
a
why are
great
you
question.
going to I'm not even
No,
going to speculate.
all I said was someone close to him died, so he sounds like he doesn't want to be there. That's what's
I thought he
important.
said it was a friend.
Well,
Thought it was
his
a friend.
coach could be a friend. I don't know. I don't know the exact answer, but it sounds like the answer is that he's checked out.
And I don't think Dom
Mm.
Reyes is like on the verge of getting cut if he loses here.
Nah.
Honestly.
Oh, his jiu-jitsu
Mark
coach,
Montoya's
his first martial arts coach.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah, Mark.
So
Montoya's
Mark is fine. Okay. So it was his coach, though.
God bless
A
Mark.
different one.
There you go.
God bless Mark and his gym that's not really functioning anymore. All right. Anyways, we're on to the next fight. We've got the silent assassin, Vicente Luque versus the answer, Temba Garimbo, not Allen Iverson. How dare you steal that guy's nickname? I'm still mad at you for it. But anyways, to break down this fight, we've got plus
Frank
130.
Yeager, too.
You should have see, but you wait a minute. Wait a minute. You had to change his nickname to Temba the Scammer.
Is
He's
he
not
though?
the answer. He's the scammer.
Is he really?
Yes.
No way,
what happened
bro.
to the money?
I gotta defend the honor of my guy Temba, bro. Temba,
I think he's fine.
I've spoken to him in the DMs. An absolute gentleman in the DMs. Temba Garimbo.
I'm sure he is probably the nicest. See, that's why I have to talk shit, because there's no chance he's not a fucking saint, right? So I have to slander him. He's probably the nicest guy ever. He'd probably still like buy me a cup of coffee after this. Like, he's probably the nicest guy ever. But no, I have to talk shit.
Well, Vicente, the question is, and I asked this to the guru earlier, is Vicente just going to find a way to finish himself in this fight? Because I think that's the only way that this is inside the distance. Temba can't finish anybody. Ramiz Brahimaj off of a neck surgery. Nico Price off of 13 children. I mean, is he really going to finish Vicente Luque?
No. How? How is he going to do it?
So what are you doing in this fight,
How?
Guru?
I'm betting fight goes the distance at minus 130 or something. Are you kidding
kind
me?
Of sick.
That's some playable chalk to me. Yeah, I mean, what's Demba by decision anyway?
Wow.
Luque is fucking washed. I mean, he literally, like, his brain is scrambled eggs. I don't know why this guy is still fighting. He really should just go be. He should just go be a striking. Should go be a striking coach or do something that he loves to do. Like, I just don't. I don't want to see him. I loved Luque. Luque was the fucking man. I was so sad when he beat Mike Perry, and then I just watched him versus Joaquin Buckley fucking pull guard. I watched him rob me versus RDA by deciding to wrestle. So, you know, he's had an interesting up and down in my life here, but I think it's time for him to hit the old dusty trail. Unless he can do it against Demba here. He's certainly pound for pound, right? Like, we can take maybe some of the durability, brain injuries out of it. You'd have to think that he's a better striker than Temba Garimbo. So, for whatever that's worth. But you can't just remove brain hemorrhages. Otherwise, you know, Luque would be much happier. So give me Themba by decision. Fight goes the distance. I prefer fight goes the distance, honestly. Rather not touch aside if I don't have to.
Liam?
Am I crazy? What do we think?
Unfortunately, we're going to feel differently on this one. It doesn't mean you're crazy, though. I could be foolish, right? And especially how many fights have gone the distance this year. Like, betting fight not to go the distance is always worrisome. But I will just say, like, the way I look at this fight is if Vicente Luque isn't as washed as we all think he is, then he should probably be way more skilled at jiu-jitsu than Temba Garimbo. And that's where Temba's been winning a lot of his fights, is by grappling people. Like, Vicente Luque just doesn't get credit for the fact that he's one of the most prolific Darce artists in the history of the sport. But also, just like, you look at what he's done in the UFC, he's been very difficult for guys to out-grapple, and he's out-grappled some guys, made him look bad, right? Michael Kiesa had him in all sorts of compromised positions, lost position once. Thanks for playing. That's the end of the fight. So Vicente Luque just shows, you know, a different depth of abilities. I mean, Tyron Woodley put him in a vice grip there as well. Tyron tried to jump over it. I think he got put to sleep, if my memory serves. So, you know, this guy Vicente Luque, not a slouch, right? And if Temba gets put in that front headlock, you know, if you're getting submitted by lower end guys like AJ Fletcher, like, you could definitely get submitted by Vicente Luque as far as I'm concerned. But the one thing I will also note is you talk about the fight last time out with Luque that makes people think he's washed. I mean, against Jeff Neal, I didn't think he looked washed. I just thought he was overmatched in terms of power. He honestly has struggled throughout his career against southpaws. And if you just look at that fight, like a hugely powerful southpaw that couldn't miss all night, like he really did a lot of damage to a very tough guy who was willing to stay out there and take it until he couldn't take it anymore. And then you look at the subsequent fights, like the RDA fight, he was not comfortable striking. What's up?
I'm sorry, I'm literally I'm 7 years old. It sounded sick. He could take it till he couldn't take it anymore. Oh my god, I couldn't contain it anymore.
Fair enough, my man. No, you're kidding. But
I'm sorry.
Overall, I think to myself, like, that fight against Buckley, like, if you had booked that a few years back, like, you would expect Luque to put him in a body bag, right? Like, he's just dangerous everywhere. Buckley likes to shoot takedowns sometimes. Like, if he shoots a takedown against Luque, it's going to be front headlock city, and on the feet, the left hook is a sniper. You know, he would find that on everybody. But now it does seem like he's not as confident on the feet, not as confident going out there to strike with somebody. And so it does seem like Themba Gorimbo has power, you know, whether you want to say that's from supplements or whatever else, like since he's got to the UFC, I mean, I remember people telling me Pete Rodriguez was going to smoke this guy. Right. And that obviously that hasn't aged well, but you just look back, like everybody, I remember it plain as day. Like a lot of sharp guys that I respect told me Pete Rodriguez is going to smoke Themba Gorimbo. And I was like, guys, he went from having no financial resources, training partners, nothing, to having a lot of financial resources and a lot of good training partners and, you know, people to work with and a manager that's like backing him up. It's like, it just seems like a lot of things have aligned for Themba to start moving in the right direction. And Vicente Luque, a very talented fighter, has seemed to be on a unfortunate but noticeable decline in terms of his health. So I think that there's a chance that he goes out there. I mean, guys, last time out, he was in New Jersey, which is where he's from. He's against a tough guy in Buckley, and he kind of just quit. And I don't mean that to be disparaging. It's just like sometimes you don't have it. If you don't have it, get out of there because you don't want to get hurt, right? But it's like he didn't have it against Buckley. He just decided like I'm done with this. And if you do that against Themba, like Themba really wants to be here. He knows what it's like to be on the other side, right? Have no money, nothing. It's like he's like, no, I like being rich. I like having these opportunities. I'm gonna try and go out there and eliminate this guy. And I just don't know that Luque has the will, right? I think the skill is on the Luque side. I just don't know if the will is there anymore to go out there and compete. I think he's more skilled than Buckley too. But I do think this is the kind of fight where rubber could meet the road for my guy Themba. You know, you're seeing money come in on the Luque side from open here. And it's an interesting fight, man. It's not an easy fight for either guy, I feel. But I saw the fight not to go the distance at plus 118. And I was like, I see enough vulnerabilities on both sides that was what interested me on Wager Wars yesterday. And, you know, certainly I prefer the fight not to go to Themba ITD, which, you know, it has been a frustrating bet in his recent performances. But then you see how Ramiz performed in his recent spot, and you're like, you know what? Maybe Ramiz isn't as bad as we all thought. So we have to give a little bit of wait and see approach. But just looking at the records, right, strength of schedule, it's literally not comparable at all. Vicente's been fighting the very best guys in the world.
Yeah. And ever since Guru said hemorrhage instead of brain bleed, which is a hemorrhage, I just keep thinking of the song by Fuel, in my hands again.
Wait, did I have it wrong?
No,
did I have
no,
it wrong?
you're right, but you just everyone
Yeah.
keeps saying brain bleed, but then you
because
said
they're not
hemorrhage.
smart enough to know the medical term. It's a
in
hemorrhage.
my hands, in my
Specifically-
hands again.
I just
love
wanted to address in the chat, Raw Torque says Luque would have finished Nico. If you just go back and watch, like I'm a Vicente Luque truther. I always was. Like I thought he should have gotten the title shot against Woodley. We saw how that fight went out, and he would have won the fight if he had fought Woodley, in my humble opinion. But times have changed, I think, in the welterweight division. And the one thing I will note is he went to war with Nico Price. He went to war with Brian Barberena and all these guys. He used to be in wars constantly. And he would come out the other side because he was tough as shit and he was durable as shit. And if you lose those attributes, then some of the foundation of your game is gone. So that's the one thing that I fear for Vicente Luque. But I acknowledge, like, yes, Vicente Luque in his peak easily finishes Nico. But it's also after absorbing a lot of damage, right? It's like, yeah, he can give it better than Nico Price, but he also used to be able to take shots better, period. And he can't take them as well now.
That's for damn sure.
But look at what Bilal Muhammad did to him, right? He lapped him. He just passed him by switching to southpaw. That was the huge monumental adjustment he made. He said, I'm going to fight him from southpaw, and he easily dominated. And I was stunned, but that was the truth.
No, you're totally right. Totally right. Yes, that was also a good time. Throw back to that nose. I mean, God, that's a staple of COVID era MMA.
On the other side of his face.
Yeah, just where's Guru when we need him the most? We've got Movsar Evloev versus the Funkmaster Aljamain Sterling. Could you just imagine you were a woman who met the most amazing man of your life, and as you go to make love, you have to yell out "Oh Movi" as he's getting to work. That's where I don't know. It just seems like one of those interesting names. Could he make a movie come UFC 310? I really needed the Guru for backup here. He chose to abandon me in this time of strife and struggle. But we've got Movsar Evloev at -230, and the Guru. Go ahead.
Oh, Movi.
All right, thank you. I needed that. I've been waiting for you. You left me hanging. I was
sorry.
in danger. It's all right. You muted yourself also. It happens. But -230, Movsar Evloev here. I'm not convinced from a money line perspective. But Guru, you seem to be. Talk to me here.
I'm convinced from a money line perspective.
I don't know. You seem convinced from a picking a side perspective.
I just feel that Movsar Evloev is the more active grappler. He's the better grappler. He goes to it more often, and I honestly think he's the better striker. Which, like, maybe people think we can think I'm crazy for that one, but I do. He's maybe not more like nuanced. Like maybe he doesn't have as many moves, but I think he's more powerful, and I think his bread and butter is more technical. So I like Movsar to get it done. I don't know why exactly they're on the prelims. It's probably because of Movsar Evloev and his lack of finishing ability. But just because they don't like somebody for their lack of finishing ability and make them take the scenic route doesn't mean they don't become champion. Go look at Merab Dvalishvili. So eventually, Movsar will get his shot if you just keep winning. And I think that's what he does here. This is another time where I feel like Aljamain, he won't get to use his athleticism to his advantage as much because I think Movsar is on all the supplements that, you could possibly obtain. So, you're not going to be able to use those physical gifts in the same way that you're used to. I also think that, this is what I know, actually. I know that Evloev just fought Arnold Allen and Sterling fought fucking the corpse of Calvin Kattar with no knees. So, that fight was a wash, man. I mean, it was never competitive. So I like Movsar to win by decision. Occam's razor. Simplest answer is, generally the right one. So give me Movsar by decision.
You bring me great sadness. I was considering the Aljamain Sterling side.
Is he really gonna? What is he gonna do? He's gonna submit him?
No, it's gonna be a split decision. And
because to me, Lopez is a much more dangerous grappler than Sterling is. Again, maybe I'm crazy for that too.
Then again, Aljo did have to postpone because of an injury, right?
He's just smelly.
Factor. All right. Well, Liam, what do you think here?
Oh, boy. Well, let's talk about a few things, man. Number one, Diego Lopes, guy I'm a fan of. Guy I bet at +6 some odd against Movsar Evloev. I think that one aged pretty well, right? If they rerun that one, I don't think we're getting plus 660 or whatever it was again, boys. But If you look at that fight, Diego Lopes is clearly a sensational grappler. You take nothing away, but what is his style? He's a guard player, right? His only submission, by the way, he's got one submission in the UFC. His only submission from the guard, got it against a black belt in Gavin Tucker, but a guy that had his own injury problems and bugs outside the octagon. So I literally think it's like a perfect submission. He did everything right. He's fantastic at jiu-jitsu, but he's got one submission in the UFC. We're talking about one of the more prolific submission grapplers in UFC history in Aljamain Sterling. In terms of what he's done and who he's done it to, I think that's important to note as well, right? Corey Sandhagen, top contender at the time. Fight goes in, it's -110 apiece. 1 minute later, Aljamain Sterling's walking around the cage, screaming and yelling while Corey Sandhagen's doing the long nap, sleeping in the middle of the octagon. And I think that, people didn't expect that at the time. It's certainly not the dominance there. And Aljo started hot and he wasn't ready. And that was the end of the fight. And you look at the Petr Yan fight. Things were trending in the wrong direction, right? Then the infamous knee, we all know how that ends. But I remember +370, Aljamain Sterling in the rematch. Not a lot of people wanted to be there, right? Not a lot of people wanted to be on that side. The scary Russian, right? The guy who's, he's, oh, look at this guy, man. Russian is shit every time. If it's a Russian, they will get credit and they deserve it. Like, they're a very winning country. But we also got to say, like, how many times has he been tested in the wrestling and the grappling, truly, right? I just will say I went back and watched his tape from beginning to end, right? Movsar Evloev. Mike Grundy's taking him down for free. Anytime he wanted to, takedown. And then eventually Mike Grundy did Mike Grundy things, got tired, didn't have any striking, didn't have anything to fall back on. He lost the fight, but there were some signs, some seeds, some elements where you're like, man, maybe that could be a problem down the line, right? Then you look at, okay, Enrique Barzola, no longer with the promotion, right? What did he do to him? Put a real pace on him, right? Made him work hard for that victory, took him down. By the way, ends round 2 just on top, like getting where he wants to. You go back and watch. Petr Yan has some of the best defensive wrestling in the UFC, and I'll stand by that. I'll run those with anybody. If you guys want to go look back point for point, the guy's defensive wrestling is sensational. It took Merab 49 takedown attempts to get 11 takedowns, right? And the guy clearly was injured in that fight. You look back at the Aljamain fight, 2 of 22. Aljamain attempted 22 takedowns. He goes 5 rounds, right? He was in title fights, scheduled 5-minute rounds. Do you remember what people used to be dealing with Aljo? 3 5-minute rounds. A lot of volume, over 100 significant strikes. He can go put that out there. So when it's on the feet, I think Movsar probably has more power in terms of who lands with impact in the boxing. We've seen Aljamain get knocked down more. He's less durable in the striking. I think that's all fair. But beyond that, who wins the grappling exchanges here? I'll be honest with you. I think it's an open question at best, right? Like, what I've seen from Evloev is that his defense, his submission defense is fantastic, but his grappling fundamentals could use some work, right? Like, the guy, you just look, he's getting caught in front headlocks routinely. You could see that in the Arnold Allen fight, okay? How about those knees to the head that he gets a nice break? He's sitting off in the corner, taking his time. Everybody gives Aljo grief for that. Nobody wants to talk about that. Those are legal strikes in the modern UFC, right? With the rule changes, now you can knee somebody in the head from the front headlock if they do not have something on the ground. That we're all good, baby. So Arnold Allen would have been just free kneeing him in the side of the head. He was bleeding everywhere out of the side of his noggin, okay? So is it one time? No. Nick Lenz caught him in the front headlock 651 times. He just was exhausted and old and couldn't finish, right? But again, I credit the defense. He's getting swept to the full mount by Nick Lenz. He's getting taken down into dominant positions by Enrique Barzola. And Aljamain Sterling, people weren't saying he's going to go out there and dominate Calvin Kattar. They were saying, man, it's could be a crazy fight, could go either way. He's moving up to 145. How's it going to go for him? Calvin Kattar, by the way, when he needed to fall back on it, went out there and wrestled Giga Chikadze, picked him up, gave him a tour of the octagon early on, and then beat his ass for 5 rounds. So you look back, everybody then was counting out Calvin Kattar, plus 200. He easily runs through him. Then against Aljo, I'll be honest, I wasn't bullish on Aljo up at 145. I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be a problem in the size. Dude, he's picking the guy up and like power slamming him in the middle of the octagon, treating him like he's a baby. You know, like I was like, that's not what I expected to see, right? If, of anything, that was not what I expected to see is Aljo's strength, grappling, everything translating just fine. So I was like, okay, Movsar Evloev, good fighter. I've said that before, but I said split decision was coming against Arnold Allen. That's what he got, right? Very close, competitive, right? They went out there, they banged it out, fun fight. But now I say to myself, okay, is Arnold Allen trying to take him down? No. Is Dan Ige trying to take him down? No. These people aren't trying to take him down. They're not trying to put him in these bad spots. And the guys that did, they put him in bad spots at minimum, right? Mike Grundy nearly pulled the man's head off. The fact that he survived shows he's tough. He kind of did the Muhammad Makayev bit, right? If you can't kill me, if you can't choke me unconscious, like, I'm not going to tap. Okay, fair enough. Like, he's not going to tap in this fight. Could he go to sleep like Cordy Sandhagen? Wouldn't stun me. Could he get backpacked for 2 rounds, lose the fight? Wouldn't stun me. Could he get out-volumed at distance in a competitive but clear decision for Aljo? Wouldn't stun me. So for me, I could see multiple paths to victory for a 2-1 underdog. I think it's Aljo or pass for me personally, and that's the way I see it. I think Evloev is a great fighter, but when you're not finishing people, you're giving them a lot of opportunities to hang out there, and I don't think this guy's cardio is lights out like people may think. Like, again, Enrique Barzola, was he more skilled or talented at any point? No. But after such a hellacious round 1 and 2, like at the end of round 2, he was starting to flag a little bit on cardio. He needed to get back to himself in round 3 and come back out, start defending takedowns. But when he was underneath, he showed his back to try and get up, which is everybody's natural instinct, especially if you've wrestled before. And Aljamain Sterling took down Petr Yan, who's very difficult to take down. Figueiredo didn't get 2 takedowns on the guy, right? So he's very difficult to take down. And when people try, they normally don't get to an advanced position. He gets right back up. Meanwhile, Aljo takes him down to the full mount, and the guy has to turn and give his back. So if he gets this guy down, I think he's going to turn and give his back, and I think that's Backpack City. And maybe I'm biased. I am, again, a New York guy, but when it was plus 370, loyalty was plus EV. So Aljamain Sterling, for me, one of the most disrespected UFC champions of all time. At plus 220, he's fought everybody, and he's never ducked a challenge. And by the way, when people said he wasn't going to take this fight, he took it again. So let's find out.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Definitely
I think it's a lot closer.
Yeah, and and obviously for him to take the fight again, he must like his chances. Yeah, this is going to be a world that he feels comfortable in, so he's going to want to test his grappling against them. So we're definitely going to see. I like a lot of what you said there, Liam. You don't not exactly want to laying minus 230 on his money line. That's for damn sure.
Yep, they might fuck around and find out. Big stop by the Packers on the goal line there.
All
right. We're moving on. It's Rihanna time, baby. Come on, rude boy, Randy Brown versus the Butcher, Brian Battle. Sorry, Rihanna just hopped out of my body for a second. I would like to apologize.
I hope our YouTube channel gets fucking deleted for copyright infringement for that disgusting, terrible fucking cover you just did. I'd like
to apologize. I gave no effort there. That was pretty bad. Usually there's a little bit more. All right, plus 180 on Randy Brown, minus 280 on the Butcher, Brian Battle. The dog money at first glance is tempting. And then I do a little digging. It's like, well, actually, Brian Battle is the first guy that kind of matches the height, the reach, the age, the physicality, the athleticism. He's actually got a bit more finishing potential than one rude boy, Randy Brown. And how about Randy Brown? How about you pick on someone your own age? God damn it. You just beat like Eliza Zaleski dos Santos. And listen, like Muslim Salikov, yeah, he looked great against fucking Kenan Song. No shit. That guy's robotic and slow. When you're fighting Randy Brown with like a 10-inch reach advantage and you're giving up like 35 years of age, Randy Brown's going to be dancing on you. That's what's going to happen. Now Randy Brown has to fight someone his own age, but unfortunately the line's minus 218. I really am so sad as I channeled my inner Rihanna, spelled differently in real life, but yes. But Brian Battle here, I just feel like the type of pace he puts on, the pressure, the ability to just build on his volume and power throughout the fight, it's just too much for Randy to handle. He just doesn't like guys that do that. Brian Battle's my pick. Probably Brian Battle in like over 1.5, and that gets us to plus money town, and I'm willing to play. I think that's what I'm going to do. Or Brian Battle live line. He's going to get touched a little bit early. He's going to be trying to find the range. He's going to be working in. And next thing you know, okay, boom, there we go. Now we're talking. So I like Battle.
Yeah,
like
no,
totals.
I definitely like Battle. I think he. Yeah, that too. I think he's the more dangerous fighter. I think he also has way more durability. So I think this is a bull and a matador type fight where the matador is kind of a bitch. So I don't necessarily expect Randy Brown to have enough power, volume, or like Brian Battle to be like, pussy and stay on the end of his punches. I think he's going to force the action, force the issue, crowd Randy Brown, and give him some trouble. And I think if he wants, he might even shoot a takedown or two. So I do like Brian Battle. I really kind of lean Brian Battle by finish. I mean, I've said time and time and time again that I feel that Brian Battle has just been an overperformer in the UFC. I mean, he was not necessarily known as a finisher coming into the UFC, but he's really taken it to another level when the bright lights are on. You see it when he fights Gabe Green in his hometown, gets a 14-second knockout. He hasn't, he's had finishes since. I'm calling the Angelosa fight a win. So that fight probably would have went the distance, though. But Losa can be tough to finish. So I do like Brian Battle here. I'm going to go with, I guess I lean knockout. But if finish is plus money, why do I got to get cute? And it is plus 150, so not going to get cute at all. What do you think there, Liam?
Well, we're going to be in violent agreement about the butcher. Listen, I like Randy Brown. I respect Randy Brown. He's a good fighter, very skilled guy. I think when you look at durability, I think the edges to Brian Battle. I think that when you look at, who's coming on right now in their career, I again would lean towards the Brian Battle side. This is a step up in competition, but I think the UFC match made him accordingly in this spot. Looking at Randy and his skill set, he's a dynamic mover. The one concern I have for Brian is he doesn't throw very many leg kicks. I think if he's wise, he will implement that in this fight. He did against Tresean Gore back in the day. You've seen a body composition radically change for Brian Battle over the course of his career. And it's not even one of the steroid looking transitions. Now, whether or not he's on performance enhancers, that's anybody's guess, right? I always suspect everybody's on them. But when you look, just like he went from being Pooh Bear, right? A guy who was a little bit doughy to looking like a serious athlete. And when you look at Brian, his potential, he has a lot of the intangibles you want from a fighter, which is you got to kill the man in order to get him out of there, right? He's got a head kick knockout loss, I think, on the amateur circuit at heavyweight. But if you look at what it would take to finish this man, I mean, Renat Fakhretdinov knocks him down in the early going. Then he absolutely just like picks him up, ragdolls him. I picked Renat to win that fight, right? But it showed me like Brian Battle just has no quit in him, right? He just does not want to give up. So you have to kill him, which is, possible, or you got to outpoint him. Because otherwise it's like this guy is going to be willing to go wherever you want to go. And in terms of what he brings on the feet, I do think he hits very hard. I think he brings a decent amount of power. Sometimes the volume's a little bit lacking, right? The Angelusa fight, would have liked to see him throw a little bit more there. But I honestly, man, I don't think that one was going the distance. I think Brian had him figured out. I think he was whooping his ass, like he said in there. And I think we saw Angelusa kind of see himself out of that fight. He kind of read the writing on the wall and was like, what, let's get out of here, live to fight another day, keep that, unblemished, non-finish losses and move on. But when I look at Brian, I think he's moving in the right direction, man. And I like his skills. So I think he's going to go out there and probably hurt Randy and submit him, not unlike Jack Della I think Jack gets a lot of respect, deservedly so, for being one of these top guys. I don't think people are including Brian Battle in those conversations. And I think it takes a big signature win, beating a guy like Randy Brown on a pay-per-view setting. I think that would be huge for him. But has he lived up to expectations so far? Yeah, if not exceeded them, right? Gone out there and overseas against Kevin Jousset, a guy that people were talking up as he's got some skills and he's from a great camp in City Kickboxing and all these things. He's the French guy, right? And it didn't work out for him, right? He knows judo. He wasn't getting takedowns. So I think of a guy like Brian as maybe a little bit behind in skills, but I think will, durability, I think he's going to have those intangible advantages here. And I just think he's a more savage guy when the cage door closes. So that's the way I see it. I think he's going to find a way to track him down, hurt him, and probably round 2 or round 3, ice him out with a submission. But I would also, say that Randy's a talented submission artist in his own right, long limbs. He's not bad on the ground. So, all credit to Randy, right? He's not a fish out of water in this fight, but give me the butcher, man.
Yeah, I love it. All over the butcher. That's the triumvirate of success. Yeah, finish them on the feet, baby. I totally agree. Gotta love it. All right, we're moving on. We've got the All-American Chris Weidman versus Eric your boy Anders.
Wait a minute. You could have said we're move along, and then you go to the All-Americans, like the All-American rejects. Move along. Okay,
no.
I'm going. Yeah, there you go.
Good. That was worth it. That was worth it. But it's the same old story, and we just moved on from Anders having to pull out. We're at catch weight this time, and we got, once again, we beat some line movements. So we got plus 100 Chris Weidman instead of plus 130. And
whatever. I had plus 140 last time. I'm fucking pissed. We can't spend too much time breaking down this fight. These guys are both on fringe retirement, even though Chris Weidman still dreams of a title shot. I'm on Chris Weidman here. I think he's far less washed at this point. Just even like body wise, even though that's fucking crazy because his leg is non-existent. But I just don't know where Eric Anders is at all. I mean, what the fuck was that performance versus Jamie Pickett? I mean, that's like the scariest thing in the world. So, yeah, I mean, you lose a round to Jamie Pickett, who goes out and then retires. I mean, it's poor. So, give me Chris Weidman here. I think Anders is good at most things, but a master of none. And I know Chris Weidman is certainly a master grappler. So give me Chris Weidman here. I think he'll be serviceable on the feet and get a couple takedowns. Anders doesn't want to be there.
I hate this fight, so I'll be super brief. I think respect to both guys. I've cashed Anders KO in the past, plus 600 against Kyle Dawkins, coming off Kyle Dawkins getting his face broken in half by Roman Dolidze. I was like, okay, let's live to find out on that one. And that was a good cash. But, Eric has frustrated me a little bit. I think I had his submission prop against Jamie Pickett, and he really went out there and did what he needed to do, right? He's been getting the takedowns he needs to get in his recent fights. And honestly, I bet huge against him with Jun Young Park, and I thought I lost that bet and was happy to cash it. It was super close. Like, it could have went either way, but just in terms of how fights go, like, with the takedowns and everything, I thought Eric Anders was probably going to get the nod there. So he's out of pension for losing these close decisions, no doubt about it. But who is more likely to win the fight by knockout? In my opinion, that's Eric Anders, right? Like, even though Chris was doing okay with Bruno Silva, who's also washed in his own right on the feet, you look at the knockdown ratios throughout their career. I mean, like, Eric just hurts people more often. And he always has. Kind of like his finishing instincts are poor, but if you had to label, like, what is the problem with Chris in the latter portion of his career? It is his inability to take damage, right? Like, it's not like he forgot how to do MMA. He still knows, but there's been a lot of fights where round 3, he's working on a 2-0 lead and just gets killed, like just gets iced off in brutal fashion. And I don't think referees have really done him favors either. Big Dan's letting him out there taking 50 extra shots. The UFC urged him to retire multiple times, and he just wants to stick around. So they're trying to give him fights where he doesn't go out there and just get hurt badly. But I will say, like, it's a weird line to me where Eric Anders is still like within striking distance. Everybody wants Weidman to win, feels like he's going to win. Like, that's what it seems like to me. And the last time it was booked, I felt that way as well. I hate betting rebooked fights as a rule. So for me, it's probably just a pass. But if I was forced to play one like prop or anything, it would probably be like the biggest number I could find on Anders KO based on everything we've seen from Chris at this point in his career.
Can't hate the player, hate the game.
I love Chris, by the way. Total gentleman.
Yeah.
Met him and Aljo, both gentlemen.
No, for sure. There's a reason why he's working into the commentary and all that stuff. We've got custom-made Cody Durden plus 130, Joshua the Fearless, Van minus 155. Do you smell a vet lesson incoming? Because I feel like I'm smelling a little something. Josh Van, once again, the smaller guy here, but whenever is Cody Durden the bigger guy? When does that ever happen in Cody Durden's career? He's generally the smaller guy, if I had to say. Maybe Bruno, his last fight. Maybe there was a little like close at least. But
I think Bruno would be around the same height, 5'5" would be my guess. 5'4", maybe even.
Yeah. So in this matchup, the one thing I don't think Josh Van has that a friend like Bruno has is the type of counter wrestling and explosive one-punch power of a guy like Bruno Bulldog. Cody Durden, I mean, this guy's a dog on a bone. He's ever since he moved his training camp, training with Pantoja, American Top Team, working out of their dorm rooms and being that guy. I'm kind of impressed overall with the turnaround we've seen in his cardio. Now, in the Silva fight, you could argue what type of letdown was that? Was that a cardio thing? I mean, dude got blasted by an uppercut that, he was winning that fight handily, and things turned around quickly. It's just Van, he lets go of the rope early. He's getting his reads. He's playing it out, and then, things can start to get away from him, and he turns it around. So the question here is, does he turn around it in time versus Cody Durden? I don't think the answer is yes. I'll take the plus money on the better wrestler, the bigger guy, more UFC experience, out of the better gym with the better management team. That's my answer.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you based on the fact that I'm not convinced on Josh Van's defensive grappling, and he usually kind of similar to his opponent. Last opponent or 2 opponents ago, Charles Johnson, he tends to lose that first round, right? So if you're going to give Cody Durden a round and then maybe give him a chance to grapple and win the second one, well, then fuck it. Got to go with the dog. What do we get, plus 140 or plus 150?
Plus 140.
Yeah, the line really hasn't moved much at all, which is kind of interesting. But I don't really give too much to his last win over. I mean, yeah, I mean the Edgar Shires win is kind of impressive at times because I mean Edgar Shires is such a weight bully. He's so huge, but I mean the dude is he just completely gasses out when he runs out of he runs out of gas. He's got nothing left to give at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like Durden here. Dog or pass. Maybe even an under. That'd be interesting, but. It probably goes over because it's flyweights. What do you think, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, from a decision-only perspective, I kind of lean towards the Durden side of things. Just in terms of his grappling upside, I do think that could be a possibility here. The worry, the danger I feel is if he gasses out in this fight, the consequences could be dire. It doesn't reflect in his knockdown rate, just 1-1 for Josh Van, according to the graphic on screen. But, he clearly has power, and he starts tracking guys down in round 2 and 3, opening up with longer combinations. Edgar Chairez is extremely tough, very durable fighter, and he was on death's door there. He had to very much hang on, had to literally prop himself up on the cage to throw that spinning back elbow that kept him in the fight. Otherwise, I think Josh Van might have finished the show there, and I bet Edgar Chairez. I thought he showed the reasons why. He went out there, landed heavy, did his thing. He's a big guy for the division, and he wasn't able to quite put him away. So you look, Josh Van hasn't been fighting the best guys in the UFC, and Cody Durden's been fighting a better level of opposition. But, Muhammad Makayev, it shows on the record as a submission. He blasted him with a knee, hurt him really bad, and then caught him out of position there. Tagir was kind of tuning him up a little bit in that fight, and I think Durden's made huge improvements over time. He's clearly gotten better, but I do still see, some dangers, right? Like the Bruno Silva fight. Like if you could be having a perfect fight and still lose the fight, it's kind of like Chris Weidman. That was the thing I was mentioning before. Is like he was having his way with Jacare and then dies, right? It's just like those kind of performances are really concerning because it's like, man, we could be out there doing everything right, still find a way to lose the fight. For me, that's why Josh Van, if I like that side, I may consider waiting for him to lose round one like he typically does, and then go out there and bet him live at plus money, even money, something like that, when his best work is typically done in the second and third round. I mean, against lesser opponents than Cody Durden, he's had those kind of bad starts. And Cody Durden, on the other hand, typically starts very hot. It's just that he could burn out his candle a little too fast for his own good sometimes. And I do think that was part of the problem against Bruno. The other thing is we kind of see Cody starting to love his hands a little bit, like starting to be willing to exchange with guys, liking to throw down. He's got that boxing pedigree, but I think that would be a mistake against Van for the most part, because that's where Van could win this fight. We've seen Van's only had a handful of years as a professional, right? His ground game's coming along. He trains with Daniel Pineda, I believe, and some good guys, but it's only coming along, right? I do still think, like, if Cody gets to his positions, Raw Torque in the chat says Cody sub. I think that's a live possibility. But if I'm Cody Durden's corner, I either want him to get the submission or lock up that back control, hold on to it, manage his breathing, because the one thing he can't afford is to get tired in this fight. If you get tired against Josh Van, he's going to run you down, like a oncoming train. So Charles Johnson is an Energizer bunny, man. He keeps working into that third round. And the fact that Cody beat him, common opponent, does tell me, like, man, maybe Cody could go out there and do it once again. But I just am worried about him getting finished in the latter portion of this fight, because Josh Van has been really, really hard for guys to deal with in extended contests. His cardio just seems to be abnormal, so that for me is the concern. But I think Cody's going to win the first round here. So maybe if you like the Van side, you just exercise some patience.
Nice. I do like that. And
Patience,
you could probably
what's
get
that?
in live. You could probably get in live. I like that.
Betting live. That's what I mean.
That's it. All right. Beautiful. That's a Maverick idea. Now we're on to the Maverick, Michael Kiesa versus Max Payne Griffin. Well, let me tell you, he hasn't really been delivering the pain recently, but here comes Michael.
Yes, he did. Yes, he has. Are you fucking kidding me? The pain of robbing Jeremiah Wells in the last fight that he clearly fucking didn't win. That was a lot of fucking pain. That was a lot of pain.
He's delivering pain in different ways than his nickname intends. Painful for those on the Jeremiah Wells side, like the one and only Guru and myself. However, in this matchup here, I mean, who has Max Griffin faced that's a legitimate wrestler anytime recently? And the answer is Neil Magny slam dunking him on his own head at the end of round 3. And I just asked myself, well, what does that mean Michael Chiesa is going to be doing early and often? He's going to be not slam dunking on his head.
He's going to be wrestling. He doesn't want to strike. He doesn't want to strike. That's for damn sure. He's gonna walk around like this for a little while.
Yeah,
and then
he's gonna dance around the outside, fake in, and then dance. We're falling apart till halftime of round 1, and then he's diving in on the single leg, and he's transitioning. Now, can Max Griffin really threaten the type of front chokes that's gonna get Chiesa out of there? I don't think he's on the similar type of level to some of the guys that have, made Michael say uncle previously. So, yep, it's Chiesa time. Please don't bring the pain, Mr. Max. But we got it at a much better price. Not going to lie. If you want to make sure you're getting us, as we're placing our bets, pick it. That's the answer. The second we place our bet, we're uploading pick it, and it gives you where we placed it, what we placed it at, how many units, and bing, bang, boom. If you want to see Bet MMA and track us there, it's Saturday. The Packers just did something good based on the Guru's reaction. So, Guru, you can tell us.
Bing, bang, boom. Bing, bang, boom into the fucking red zone, baby.
Oh, father. So, what do you got in this fight, Skeeter?
Yeah, you got it. I got a fucking dog shot on Michael the Maverick Chiesa. Like, low-key, one of my, one of my favorite low-key fighters, you know what I'm saying? Like, underrated type shit. But at the same time, man, he's just disappointed after disappointed after disappointed. At the same time, you look at who he fought. I mean, he got the last bit of whatever Vicente Luque was good at, and then he loses to up and comer and Sean Brady and always athletic and difficult Kevin Holland, who's got the nasty Darce choke. I mean, Michael Kiesa loves to get submitted. I mean, he loves it. He's been submitted 5 times in his career. Max Griffin only has 2 subs in his entire career as well, and I believe he has 0 in the it is 0 in the UFC. So this is a chance for Michael not only to fight somebody his own age and near his own athleticism, but he's fighting somebody that wants to strike with him, and he's a grappler. So give me Michael the Maverick Chiesa here. I honestly think, I mean, would it be crazy for him to get a finish? I didn't expect him to finish fucking Tony Ferguson, but he did. He could do it. Max has only been finished once, though, and that was a long time. Round 3 versus Colby Covington. So I could see that type of
time ago.
Right. If Colby Covington is finishing you, probably anybody can. But it was if I remember that fight, it was just relentless pressure and wrestling from Colby in a way that I don't even necessarily Michael Chiesa to have. But I mean, if he just lays on top of him in ground and pounds, it's possible. It's really just not Michael Chiesa's way, though. He's not really a ground and pound kind of guy. He wants this. He's actually never a ground and pound kind of guy. In his illustrious career, he has 0 KOs. So I don't necessarily see him getting the sub. I think it's just a boring decision that he wrestles and wins. Yeah, baby, Tucker Kraft on my fucking bench. Fuck. I'll take the points though.
All right, Liam.
I'm never satisfied.
Liam, are you cooking up another trifecta with us, or what do you got in this fight here? I respect your opinion very much. So,
yeah, we're all leaning the same way here. I mean, listen, do we know the risks going in with Michael Chiesa? I mean, of course. Like Michael Chiesa, he doesn't really love the ruckus too much. Like he likes to keep it all in front of him. He likes to dominate fights. I don't think he likes to be in fights that are competitive. That's just not his thing. You look at the Vicente Luque fight, it wasn't a lack of skills, right? He got to every position he wanted early. He just fell over the top and he lost his composure. And you need to stay composed in the fire. I think if I had to credit anything that Max Griffin does, significantly better than Chiesa besides strike, it is his composure has been pretty good. It's hard to put him away in the UFC. But when you look at where he's at, he's an older guy. He's a guy that, he's got power in his hands. He's got knockdown ability, but I think his cardio is getting a bit suspect at this point. I think there's always been some questions like we talked about with the Colby fight where, it wasn't a lack of skills. It was a fatigue issue, right? He just got fatigued over the course of a difficult fight where he was getting out grappled there. And you look at this fight with Chiesa. Chiesa's gone out there against very potent grapplers, just dominated them with the grappling, right? Taking him down. Common opponent in Neil Magny. Look at how those fights played out. I bet Chiesa is, I believe, a plus 100 underdog in that fight against Neil Magny, and he went out there and won it. And if you look back, I bet Max Griffin against Neil Magny, and I'll tell you guys the truth. I thought he won that fight. I thought it was razor thin, but you look back and why can you not get up in arms about it? He blew it. Like he went out there and dominated early, hurt him so bad, but the finishing instincts just weren't there. They weren't on point. So I think that if Griffin wins this fight, it's probably via finish, right? Like I think the KO is certainly live here for him, but also, he does attempt submissions. I went back to look to make sure I wasn't crazy. He's attempted a couple submissions in the UFC before, and I think losses sometimes in MMA are pathological. Like Michael Chiesa finds quit positions when things aren't going his way. He gives up. The Darce choke is the most comfortable among them. But typically my cap of a Michael Chiesa fight is, do they know the Darce or Chiesa wins? So it's like, I don't know that Max Griffin's going to Darce him. And if he's not going to, I think Chiesa might be comfortable enough wrestling and grappling this guy to go out there and get the win. But it's hard to trust him. 2 old guys. It's an old guy fight. But I think Chiesa's got a more time-tested game, and 12-12 on submission attempts in the UFC. He's gone out there and grappled with a lot of really high-level guys. He's put some of them away as well. If I'm not mistaken, he submitted Beneil Dariush back in the day, a very rare feat. period, a training room and everything else. So I think that Michael Kiesa deserves some credit for his ability to take the back and finish, but also to just bank rounds, get on top of people and hold them down. And for that reason, I think he's got multiple paths to victory here, submission or decision. I think for Max Griffin, he's probably going to need to finish Kiesa, or it means something's probably gone wrong. I don't think they're going to just strike it out at distance for 15 minutes personally.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense to me. We're all in the same boat. Hope you guys got on the gravy train. Well, if not, follow us on Picket so that you can be in the know of all of our maneuvers. Guru is saying something, but he's muted. So
well, it was better. It was better. But if you didn't get on the gravy train, right? I actually think, and you guys very quickly tell me if you like it or not.
Oh Lord.
How about Michael Chiesa ladders? Over 1.5, over 2.5 decision.
Could be high.
I think there's a chance Michael Chiesa cashes with a first round submission. To tell you the God's honest truth.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Back to back first round subs.
There's a chance.
I mean, dude, what is his normal win condition in fights? Like, he can go out there and outgrind some of these guys to a decision, but otherwise it's that submission, baby.
That's it.
Yeah. I always just remember he didn't sub Neil Magny in that fight.
Nice. Fair enough. All right.
You should be arrested.
We've got Jesus himself, the Carpenter, Clay Guida, plus 700 versus Chase the Dream Hooper, minus 1100. I mean,
Occam's razor. Chase Hooper by submission, minus 130. Guida's been subbed 10 times. What else do we got to say?
And they face each other in grappling.
Otherwise, it's a decision.
Hooper won by sub and grappling. So, yeah.
Liam, anything different there?
Not really. I just think it's Chase inside the distance. I mean, one thing I will note is Chase Hooper does not get enough credit for his ground and pound. I've been saying it since he was plus 1,200 to KO Felipe Colares and then beat the absolute tar out of him. I think it was the Kanan Kawahe fight on Contender Series. He absolutely beat the shit out of that kid. Like, Chase Hooper is just very good when he's grappling, right? So whether he's grappling to get to the top position and beat somebody up, or whether he's grappling from the bottom position, looking for sweep submissions, getting guys in bad situations and then finishing them. He's been very high level with both of those. And I think that in this fight, the age is a significant factor. I just think he's the faster guy, the more athletic guy. I had said to my guy, Dan Levy, the worry for me, the concern is him not being aggressive enough. Like if he goes out there and shows a little too much respect for the legend and kind of just lets him off the hook. But I think if we get the best performance out of Chase Hooper, he's going to beat the shit out of Clay Guida and probably do whatever he wants to him because he's the much younger guy. I think he's the more talented grappler. And ultimately, I respect Clay, but he's long since passed his best. And even at his best, guys that were submission aces did tend to give him some problems. And if you look at Leonardo Santos, I honestly thought he blew an opportunity to finish Clay Guida with a submission in all likelihood because he was out there spending all of his energy throwing 63 significant strikes to finish. But what's the difference there? That's a 40-some-odd-year-old man who doesn't have cardio. And I think the thing about Chase that's also impressive is his cardio. He can push a very high pace rate over the course of the 3 rounds. So in my opinion, we've seen against other primary grapplers, guys like Jordan Levitt, guys that wanted to go out there and mix it up on the ground. How'd that end for them? I predicted that Chase was going to submit him and people were, hyping him up. He's a grappler. He's very good on the ground. Yeah, but there's always levels to this. And we saw how it went when there was a pure grappling match. If Clay Guida goes out there and shins him, I'll take my hat off to him, right? The legend. What can you say? But ultimately, it's just like, how do I see Clay winning this fight? I'd be very surprised if he did. Like he would probably need to take him down and control him from top, and I don't see him doing that. So I like Chase the Dream Hooper, and I think he's going to beat the shit out of him.
Liam, I am still fucking weeping, not crying. I am still weeping over my Chase Hooper round 2, round 3 KO ticket. I had KO. I had KO 2-3
against Slava.
Yeah, it was terrible.
I picked it. I bet it. It was one of my best bets on Brady's show. I mean, I had it. And who was it? Tyone? He robbed me. Oh no, it might have been Peterson. I don't know, but I think it was Peterson. I was robbed.
Gut feel. If if Guida's getting beat up, they might jump in to save him in this kind of one. That is my gut feel. But I will just say, do you remember when Jillian Robertson beat the tar out of Michelle Watterson, but because it was her retirement fight, they just let this woman get assaulted for the full 15? That's the other thing I'm a little bit worried about. But I just think Chase is a finisher, man. Like, I just think he's got good skills. So that's the way I see it.
Oh, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it. The Guru dancing along to the Packers bet that he placed. If you guys are ever curious, NBA bets like the Knicks minus 19.5 at plus 172 that we hit today, or maybe the Packers plus 3.5 at minus 110. If you guys are ever interested, like, we don't really do that content on our channel or anything, but we're always betting. So make sure you follow us over on Pickett. It's got all of our bets. Bet MMA, for some reason, I haven't cracked the code, but we're over there too. We're having fun. Guru's doing better than me. As a collaborative, we're break even all time over 4 years.
4 years. That's actually impressive. I think
Not
that's
bad,
impressive.
Right? Actually,
Nobody
we're
wants to
technically
listen to
broke into
people
the
break
positive.
even. Nobody wants to listen to people break even. Like, they rather listen to Trent, who loses all his money, or listen to guys like Liam, who wins them a ton of money. Nobody wants to break even, but God damn it, we're trying.
Yeah, as a collaborative, at least. Look at our pickets. You're seeing some profit. So
we all have ups and downs, gentlemen. You just got to learn to ride the waves. That's it. If you could be a lifetime winner, that's the goal. So keep pushing.
Hang 10,
no,
baby.
100%. And I feel like Bet MMA is not the complete summation of who we are as MMA gamblers. It's just not. It doesn't get all our bets. It doesn't get all our live bets. So,
amen. All right. Well, we've got Kennedy, the African Savage, and Nzechukwu.
We made it.
Versus
the curtain jerker.
This is it. Oh, man, I'll show you something. Versus Lukas, the bold Breski.
I'm already jerking.
So, actually, funny enough, Kennedy and Nzechukwu goes from fighting Dave Blunts in his last fight to fighting a guy that's clearly back on the juice. You like that? That was a good one, right?
Is he back on the juice? Did you see a picture of him? He probably looks terrible.
No, Lukas, before his last fight, back on the juice, brother. He's
okay, can somebody
not
tell
like
me
he used to be, but
no. How did this guy get another contract? I don't understand. He
because
gets
he
his
beat
no.
Walter
He
Walker.
He wins his last fight on his contract, and he gets a new one just because he beat Walter Walker.
Yes,
it's terrible. He loses to Mick Parkin. He's going to lose this fight too. They might just cut him after this.
They need body bags here.
Oh,
so
you're right.
This is not Joe
You're
Body
right.
Bags Pfeiffer, but it's time for the African Savage to keep making his name in the heavyweight division. He's going 2 for 2 on finishes. It's going to be body shots, whether it's knees to the body, teep kicks from distance. Kennedy, the nastiness by finish, minus 550. Are we even going to play this game? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But Guru, I mean, anything, you know?
No, not. I mean, you're dude. It's a minus 550 fight.
Yeah.
You and me will play some $10 degeneracy right before it starts. But I mean, this can't even make the AIDS parlay. I mean, what is this?
Yeah.
I know that Liam's probably going to be looking at the dog.
Yeah.
But you have to. You have to be okay to look stupid. It's a heavyweight fight. I've said time and time again on this pod that there's no reason to have a heavyweight at anything north of minus 250 because they're fucking huge and anybody could go down at any time. With that being said, I like Kennedy to win, but I'm not interested in any major exposure here really at all. So give me Kennedy by knockout, kind of round 2, round 3. I think it takes some time. He's a slow starter. So
yeah, I certainly think that this is price prohibitive. Kiwi just mentioned in the chat, Kennedy shit the bed before, no doubt about it. I basically think that if the fight goes the distance, like that, then it's kind of a wash, right? I think Breski sucks. Like, tell you the truth, I don't think the guy's any good, right?
Yeah.
I love that.
If you look, like,
I love that you said that because you're so technical, and I love that you just said that. Yeah, I think because you never say that. I love that.
Well, I try to always give people their due, right? He's not good at fighting, but I bet him against Walter Walker, right? Why?
Nice.
I was like, Walter Walker coming in, maybe has some UFC jitters, right? Like you could paint a case for why he wouldn't fight well. And also I was like, he goes for takedowns. He doesn't have a very good top game. He kind of just parks it on top.
Yeah.
And I was like, Breski, if you don't get him out of there, like he'll just throw out a lot of volume over the course of 15 minutes, right? That's just what we've seen. If you look at his striking stats, it tells you the same thing. He's got a better striking differential than Kennedy. So the problem is he doesn't take a shot very well, right? Like Kennedy is a more durable fighter. He has better attributes for fighting. Breski isn't as good an athlete, not as durable, but it's not like Kennedy is, bulletproof. Like the guy's gone down before to punches in the first round, elbows. Daun Jung, who's like clinging to a job, knocked him out in round 1. And I think a lot of that could be attributed to the weight cut. But the other thing I want to note is we've seen Kennedy in 205 fights that went the distance where he kind of gassed out a little bit and let OSP, who was ancient and gets finished by everybody else, kind of go the distance with him, right? Really concerning look. And if we say that's the weight cut, okay, fair enough. But then he goes out there and beats up Chris Barnett, which tells us relatively nothing. And then, yes, he looked all right there. Like he looked like he was going to easily kill Barnett at any point in that fight. But the one thing I wanted to take away from that is like, what does his cardio look like with 240 pounds on his frame if the fight gets extended? Because I do think that is one thing that we haven't really found out. Like cutting weight can be bad for your cardio, but also weighing 240 pounds and fighting in a cage when you're used to weighing 205 pounds fighting in the cage can be a big difference maker in a longer fight. So those are a couple of the things that I would say is like the pump the brakes on Kennedy, but just Lukas Breski is not very good. I do think the reason he got signed again is as enhancement talent. I don't think they're looking to push this guy up the card at some point, but I also think he's willing to sign on the dotted line with anybody, go out there, and if they don't finish him, put him away like Walter Walker, he's going to go out there and just do what he does, which is throw volume. So again, in a decision-only market, that's the way I would probably look to invest in Breski because I think he gets finished at a pretty high clip here. But Kennedy and Nzechukwu, the other thing I'll note is just the sub price is very wide. And this is a guy in Lukas Breski never been submitted. I get why the line is wide, but he gets kind of crumpled up into these, ugly postures. And it's like Kennedy could just grab a hold of his neck. He didn't seem interested in submitting Chris Barnett, but when he did go for submissions, he's gotten them. So I think that Kennedy has some submission ability brewing. He's getting better in his grappling, but who knows if this is the fight where he's going to try and assert that advantage.
Yeah. I don't think I'm trying to find out. We had a great time betting him by sub against Devin Clark as we sat in Madison Square Garden. Or no, wait, was it Prudential Center? I think it was Madison Square Garden. And then we saw Devin Clark's dad from 2 sections over sitting next to someone that obviously wasn't there with him, leaning so far away uncomfortably as this, do you got to fight, Devin? And Kennedy's just choking him out, and then that was the end of it. But so I felt bad as he ran out of the arena, but we cashed our beautiful submission ticket, and here we are at the crossroads. And I don't think we're taking plus 700 this time, but we'll see. You never know what we do in our life. Follow us on Pickett, right? So hey guys, appreciate you so much. It's been an absolute banger. Liam, the absolute dog for getting it after with us today and giving you some nice dog shots to take a look at. So make sure you guys are following him. I appreciate all you guys so much. We have a great time week after week, breaking down these cards, making some money, having some fun. This is what it's all about. I wouldn't have it any other way. It's always the best bets, best guess, and always free picks on our end. So just keep doing your thing. Throw a like, subscribe if you haven't already. It means a lot. And before we give it to Guru to do the proper send off, Liam, what do you got to say for the people?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I hope everybody will subscribe to the show. Let's keep our boys running up those numbers. Drop a like as well. It's an easy way to help support creators on this platform. I feel like everybody should be taking advantage. I know as soon as we hop off the air, I'll go hit the like button myself, do the honors, but appreciate these boys always. I appreciate the chat. Thank you guys. Everybody's rocking, has nice comments, has their own thoughts and opinions that you're sharing as well. A lot of great information was shared tonight. So God bless you all, man. I hope that you have a great event and right back at it soon for me. So we'll be talking to you guys very soon on the Liam Picks Fights channel. And if you don't support me over there yet, I hope you guys will choose to do so after the show today. Thanks, guys.
I mean, is there anybody nicer than fucking Liam, guys? I mean, seriously. He comes in on short notice, gives us 2 hours of hard breakdowns, honest. He charges people for these opinions, right? So, I mean, he's coming here giving us his hard work for free and his time. Time is money. So, Liam, seriously, man, we really, really appreciate you, bud. You consider you a friend. I can't believe you live kind of close, but we've never linked yet. That will happen faithfully, and we will take care of business, if you know what I mean. That will happen. Seriously, Liam, thank you again so much for being here. TB, thank you so much for being here. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. Guys, that's it. We got one fight card left after this one for the entire year of 2024. Hopefully we'll do our year in review podcast at some point between the Tampa card and the UFC Vegas 101 card. So look forward to that. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you follow my unbelievable co-host, TV Scouting MMA, over on Twitter, Verdict, Instagram, Picket, Tapology, and BetMMA. And you can follow me, the Guru Scouting MMA, over on Twitter, Instagram, Picket, Verdict, Tapology, and BetMMA. Guys, take care. Be safe out there, and let's make some money.